Chapter 441. Of course, these are just my opinions. As for what to do, it's up to you, Zhuge Yuanhong said with a smile. Ting Qingshan nodded with a smile and said, Teacher, you are much more comprehensive than I am. By the way, teacher, can I take some of the elixir of the North Sea with me? You risked your life to get the elixir of the North Sea. Tell me, how many drops do you need? Zhuge Yuanhong asked. Ting Qingshan pondered and said, There are only about 3,000 sets of fiery gilt steel battle armor. I can get a troop of 1,500 soldiers from the Tai A mountain range. Teacher, you can give me 1,500 drops of the elixir of the North Sea. Zhuge Yuanhong looked at Elder Wu and said respectfully, Martial Ancestor, the elixir of the North Sea is with you. Please give me 2 bottles. Okay. Elder Wu smiled as he turned into a blur and disappeared from the room. After a short while, Elder Wu returned. Qingshan. Elder Wu handed over 2 black jade bottles with wooden stoppers and said, This bottle contains about 1,000 drops of the elixir of the North Sea. 2 bottles contain 2,000 drops. At the side, Zhuge Yuanhong smiled and said, If it's not enough, we can talk about it later. I only have a few subordinates. It's enough. Ting Qingshan smiled as he took the 2 jade bottles and put them in the bag behind him. Teacher, how many blazing flame-red lotus seeds do you want? These lotus seeds can help an expert at the peak of the post-liminary realm break through to the emptiness Dan innate realm. It can also help a true Dan innate realm cultivator reach the golden Dan innate realm. It is indeed a magical treasure. Elder Wu couldn't help but praise. 3 is enough. Zhuge Yuanhong nodded. Ting Qingshan opened the jade box in the bag. There were 8 lotus seeds left. He took out 3 and gave them to Zhuge Yuanhong. Who wouldn't want a treasure? Actually, Zhuge Yuanhong also wanted a lot. However, Zhuge Yuanhong knew that a 21-year-old emptiness realm expert was unprecedented, and it was possible that no one would be able to do it in the future. In the future, Ting Qingshan would definitely reach the culmination of the emptiness realm. Reaching the insightful emptiness realm was also in the bag. It wasn't impossible for him to become a legendary omnipotent expert on par with Emperor Yu and the Heavenly Emperor of Qin Mountains. If the Guiyuan sect wanted to survive for thousands of years, they would have to rely on Ting Qingshan. Naturally, for many things, Zhuge Yuanhong was only giving suggestions. Even if there were treasures, he would not be greedy. Master. Ting Qingshan's voice suddenly turned low. What is it? Zhuge Yuanhong asked. Where are Qing's ashes? When Ting Qingshan said this, his heart ached. Zhuge Yuanhong's expression changed. He sighed and said, Follow me. Because of the constant killing in the 9 prefectures, few people built cemeteries. For example, if some large sects built their tombs outside the city, they were worried that it would be dug up. But in the city, how many tombs would a large sect need for 1,000 years? There wouldn't be enough space to build a tomb. Therefore, cremation of the corpses and protection of the urns were done in almost every place in the world. 11. Ting Qingshan's gaze fell on a tower in front of him. There were many urns of cremated members of the Guiyuan sect. Qing's urn is on the 3rd floor of the 11th tower. It is made of icicle jades. You will see it when you go up. Zhuge Yuanhong's eyes were filled with sorrow. The most painful thing in the world was to see a child die before his own eyes. Zhuge Qing's death was a great blow to Zhuge Yuanhong. Yes, master. Ting Qingshan carried a basket. In the basket there were incense, candles, wine pots, wine cups, and many other sacrificial items. He immediately stepped into the pagoda. Although there were windows in the pagoda and sunlight shone in, the entire pagoda inexplicably felt very gloomy and cold. On every floor, there were stone tablets that were nearly 3 zhang tall. Many names were densely carved on each stone tablet. Clatter. Thud. Thud. Stepping on the stone stairs, a gust of cold wind blew through the tower. He arrived at the 3rd floor. There weren't many cinerary urns on the third floor. It was obvious that it wasn't full yet. Although there were 10 tall stone tablets, only one of them was densely packed with names. The other stone tablets were empty. Ching Ching. Ting Qingshan stood in front of the first stone tablet and glanced at it. On the 5th row, there was the 17th name, Zhuge. The fairy-like girl in the past was now just one of the many names on the tombstones. It's been almost 4 years, Qing Qing. Ting Qingshan walked to the many cinerary caskets behind the tombstone. Among them, the cinerary casket that seemed to be made of transparent ice was very eye-catching. 3 words were carved on the side of the cinerary casket, Zhuge Qing. On the right side of these 3 words there were a few smaller words, written by Father Zhuge Yuanhong. Qing Qing, it's been 4 years, but I feel like it happened just yesterday. Ting Qingshan squatted down and put down all kinds of worshipping items. He then lit the incense and candles and poured a cup of sake. Big brother Ting. Can you kiss me? Kiss me. Just like husband kissing wife. The sad scene was still fresh in his mind. As Ting Qingshan looked at the urn before him, he couldn't help but feel heartache. Ting Qingshan held the wine jug in his hand. There was still more than half of the wine left in the jug. He raised his head and poured the wine into his mouth. Gurgle, Ting Qingshan drank continuously. He almost finished the wine in one breath. Some of the wine spilled on his clothes. It was as if a ball of fire was burning in his chest. Qing Qing, Big Brother Ting hasn't come to see you for a long time. He finally came today. He finally came back. Ting Qingshan gently stroked the urn. The urn was made of icicle jade and emitted a bone-piercing coldness. Ting Qingshan lowered his head and kissed the urn. He kissed the urn of the pitiful girl who only begged for a kiss from Ting Qingshan before she died. It was like a husband kissing his wife. Qing Qing, Big Brother Ting can't do anything for you. I can only promise that your brother, your parents, and the others will live a good life, and that the Gui Yuan sect will be passed down forever. I will make Qinghu Island, which caused your death, disappear like smoke. Ting Qingshan swore softly in front of Lady Qing's urn. In the evening of the same day, Ting Qingshan returned to the Li residence of Nanxing County with 2 bottles of the elixir of the North Sea. The next morning, the cold wind blew in the morning. On the training field, the enormous 6-legged blade-like Qi was lying in a pit. It stared at Ting Qingshan with its huge, protruding golden eyes. When Ting Qingshan finished, the enormous creature began to think hard. Phew, the 6-legged blade-like Qi's breath carried a fishy smell. Ah Shou, ah Dong. Ting Qingshan shouted. Teacher! Ting Shou and Yang Dong answered hastily. Ting Qingshan couldn't help but glance at Ting Shou. Ah Shou! Senior martial brother forgot to call me teacher again. Yang Dong giggled. After coming to the land of the 9 prefectures, Ting Qingshan had forced the 2 to change their habits. They no longer called Ting Qingshan teacher, but teacher. Ting Shou scratched his head awkwardly and said in a deep voice, Yes, teacher. Disciple will remember. Ting Qingshan nodded and looked at Yang Dong. Ah Dong, how is your cultivation of fist art? It's just like this. Yang Dong shook his head helplessly and said, I still don't feel anything. Ting Shou, who was at the side, said, Teacher, Ah Dong is not suitable to cultivate the internal martial art. It had been half a year since Ting Qingshan had accepted Yang Dong as his disciple. However, Yang Dong had not made any progress in cultivating the internal martial art. Compared to Ting Shou, who had an extremely high comprehension ability, Yang Dong was too far behind. Being suitable is the best. You shouldn't force it. Ting Qingshan shook his head secretly. It would be great if all the disciples that he, Ting Qingshan, had started cultivating the internal martial art and carried it forward in the future. Unfortunately, the requirements for cultivating the internal martial art were slightly higher. Ah Dong, open your mouth, Ting Qingshan instructed. Yang Dong was startled. Ting Qingshan walked to the side and picked up the bundle. He took out a jade bottle from the bundle and gently pulled out the cork. Open your mouth. Ting Qingshan frowned. Yes, teacher. Yang Dong nervously called Ting Qingshan teacher again. Ting Qingshan extended a water-blue supreme force from his hand and dipped a drop of the elixir of the North Sea into the jade bottle. He then wrapped it with the supreme force and delivered it to Yang Dong's mouth, releasing the supreme force. Drip. A drop of the elixir of the North Sea fell into Yang Dong's body. Yang Dong's face suddenly turned red and then green. His entire body trembled. Ting Qingshan extended his hand and placed it on Yang Dong's shoulder. A strand of the water-blue supreme force immediately seeped into Yang Dong's body. Ting Qingshan immediately felt some of the meridians in Yang Dong's body. Ting Qingshan revealed a smile and said, as expected of the elixir of the North Sea, its effect is even better than the scarlet fruit. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Yang Dong's expression returned to normal and he opened his eyes. Teacher. Yang Dong looked at Ting Qingshan in surprise and said, I feel that the inner strength in my body is very strong. You have already reached the pinnacle of the post-liminary realm. Even your meridians have been modified. Ting Qingshan took out a secret manual from his bosom. The words on the manual were written in Duanmu consonants characters. This is the Tianfeng clan's superior secret manual, Ardent Wind's secret manual. It is enough for you to cultivate to the Golden Dan innate realm. From now on, you will practice this secret manual. Ting Qingshan tossed the manual to Yang Dong, who caught it in surprise. The Mu clan didn't care about the many secret manuals among the Tianfeng clan's treasures. After all, the Mu clan had the inheritance of Duanmu deity. However, Ting Qingshan still cared about them and brought them to the land of the 9 prefectures. The Tianfeng clan itself had many secret manuals. In addition, they had plundered the secret manuals of other clans. The number of secret manuals in the Tianfeng clan's treasures was several times more than that of the Guiyuan sect. From today onwards, I will teach you the sword art 49 Azure Lotus Swords. In terms of power, the 49 Azure Lotus Swords is almost the same as the 72 earth-splitting forms. You must not be careless. If you can't even practice the sword art, I will not teach you any more martial arts, Ting Qingshan said seriously. Yes, teacher. Feeling the pressure, Yang Dong didn't dare to be careless anymore. He hastily responded respectfully. On the morning of the second day after teaching Yang Dong, Ting Qingshan hired some men and the guards of the Li residence to escort the 3 big boxes of fiery gilt steel to Jiangning County City. After all, he couldn't let the 6-legged blade-like Qi descend upon the Guiyuan sect arrogantly. The 6-legged blade-like Qi was too big. Little June, I am going out for a while. I will be back in a few days, Ting Qingshan said. Be careful on the road. At the entrance of the Li residence, Li Jun watched as Ting Qingshan and the group of guards left with the wooden boxes of fiery gilt steel. Second brother, look at that woman. Not far from the street, 2 ordinary-looking young men were staring at Li Jun. Isn't she the person the higher-ups are looking for? It seems like they started looking for this woman 3 years ago. Yes, that's her. She looks exactly the same as in the portrait. I didn't expect that we would find her after 3 years. The 2 young men looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with joy. They had struck gold this time. P.S. 2 chapters completed. Damn, I'm late by 3 minutes today. A tomato owes me another chapter. I will be busy during the New Year's Day, so I can only guarantee 2 chapters per day. After a few days, I will make up for what I owe. Throughout the year, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day were the 2 most important days. Everyone should reunite with their families. Happy. Chapter 442. When Ting Qingshan left Nanxing County with his guards and hired men, 2 ordinary-looking young men quietly arrived outside a luxurious mansion. There were 2 burly men standing guard at the entrance of the mansion. One of them, a man with a full beard, looked at the two men coldly and asked, "What are you doing here?" "Big brother, we have an important matter to attend to." The two young men smiled mischievously. The man with a full beard looked at the two young men in surprise. He knew the rules of the organization very well. These two young men in front of him were the most ordinary gray robes in the organization. They were not qualified to meet the person in charge of the organization in Nanxing County. Unless something big happened. "Go in." The man with a full beard waved his hand. The two young men immediately laughed and went in. However, they were cursing inwardly. "What a snob! Aren't you just a gatekeeper? Although you're a gatekeeper for a big family. Wait until I make a great contribution and get promoted to a white robe. In the future, even a green robe like you will have to be respectful when you see us brothers." In a pavilion in the luxurious mansion, a white-haired old man sat there. Lord Wang. The two young men immediately bowed respectfully. "What's so urgent that you came directly to the Lord Protector? Don't you know the rules?" The old man looked at the two young men with dissatisfaction and said, "If it's nothing important, you two young men." Lord. The eyes of a short-haired, quick-witted young man lit up as he said hastily, "Haven't the higher-ups been looking for a young lady? We found her." "What young lady?" The old man frowned. "The one they were looking for 3 years ago. The mission hasn't been revoked yet, right?" The other simple-looking young man said excitedly. "Phew." The old man stood up abruptly. His gaze was as sharp as a sword as he stared at the two young men. He asked anxiously, "You found her? Where is she?" It was the lowest-level mission in the organization. Of course, they didn't know the status of the young lady the organization was looking for. However, the old man was considered a middle-level person. He knew. "She's in Nanxing County." The simple-looking young man said hastily, "We saw it with our own eyes. It's definitely true." "You're not mistaken? She's in Nanxing County?" The old man's breathing became unstable. He knew very well ever since that high and mighty young mistress left, the organization was in an uproar. She was the #1 beast-taming grandmaster that the organization had pinned their hopes on. In terms of status, she was even higher than a Golden Dan innate expert. Such a beast-taming master had suddenly disappeared. How could the organization not look for him everywhere? Yes, it was in the Nanxing County. "The two of us dare to swear," the two young men said hastily. "All right." The old man took a deep breath and tried to keep himself calm. He glanced at the two young men and said, "This matter has not been confirmed yet, so there's no need to tell the Lord Protector for now. Both of you come with me and investigate carefully. If it's true, the two of you will be promoted at least 2 levels, maybe even 3. The two young men looked at each other with excitement in their eyes. "Let's go." The old man immediately led the two young men. At the same time, he also dispatched some people to investigate the Nanxing County's Li Mansion. With the powerful connections of this organization in the dark, the guards and maids in the Li residence were directly hired by Ting Qingshan and the others. Their loyalty was not exaggerated, so this organization easily found out the information they wanted to know. Half a day later, in a luxurious mansion. "Old Brother Wang, are you sure you didn't investigate wrongly?" The seemingly elegant middle-aged man widened his eyes. "Yes, it's the goddess," the old man hastily said excitedly. "I've already investigated. There's no mistake. Moreover, the goddess's name is Li Jun, and this mansion is called the Li Mansion. Secondly, the mistress of the Li Mansion looks almost the same as the goddess. Apart from this, we found out from the guards and maids of the Li Mansion that there is often a huge eagle in the Li Mansion. Although the huge eagle rarely flies in the sky, they often see the huge eagle in the inner courtyard through the bricks, tiles, and doors. The goddess knows how to tame beasts, Lord Protector." The old man stared at the middle-aged man and said, "The mistress of the Li Mansion is most likely the goddess." It's been more than 3 years. The sect leader has been looking for the goddess. I didn't expect that we would find her. The middle-aged man revealed an excited smile. He could not help but pat the old man's shoulder. Old brother Wang, if we succeed this time, I'm afraid I'll have to leave the Nanxing County. At that time, the position of protector will be yours. The old man chuckled. I'm also benefiting from Lord Protector. By the way, Lord Protector. The old man frowned and said, according to our investigation, the goddess is the mistress of the Li Mansion, and there's also a young master. Their husband and wife. This news. The goddess's marriage is indeed a big matter. The middle-aged man frowned. The art of taming beasts was extremely important. After all, in the land of the 9 prefectures, some sects like Qing Hu Island and the powerful Ing family didn't know the art of taming beasts. The art of taming beasts was definitely not allowed to be taught to outsiders. Logically, Li Jun's marriage shouldn't be with an outsider. Even if she wanted to marry, it should be with an insider. According to the goddess's temper, and the information we received. The middle-aged man pondered and said, the goddess's man is probably the expert known as the demon Arata, one of the 3 foreign dignitaries, Lord Huha. Lord Huha? The old man froze. In the past, Ting Qingshan used the identity of Huha and displayed his strength in the God of Heaven mountain. Even the first godly general, Boralimu, was defeated by him. In the end, he was even invited by the God of the God of Heaven mountain and became the 3rd foreign dignitary of the God of Heaven palace. Finding Lord Huha's traces is also a big matter. The middle-aged man shook his head and said, however, according to the information you received and the descriptions of the maids and guards, this Lord Li's appearance is obviously different from Lord Huha's. However, there are still human skin masks in this world. Maybe it's Lord Huha. The old man smiled and said, if that's the case, we'll have made a great contribution. Yes, let's quickly inform the High Priestess. That night, a messenger pigeon flew out of Nanxing County and headed towards Qingzhou. When the messenger pigeon flew towards Qingzhou, Ting Qingshan and the others were on their way to Jiangning County. The journey took them 3 to 4 days. On the afternoon of the 4th day, the group finally arrived at Jiangning County City. However, during the journey, Ting Qingshan was very relaxed. He sat in the carriage and cultivated quietly. Ting Qingshan's heart was in harmony with the vast earth, and he could feel the aura of the earth. He had already created the 8th move of the earth element fist. Only the 9th move was left. Jiangning County, in a dark warehouse of the Guiyuan sect. Clang. Along with a loud noise, the 3rd extra-large wooden box fell. Sizzle, the pine resin on the torches sizzled and burned. A total of 6 torches lit up the entire warehouse. Dressed in a loose moon-white cloak, Zhuge Yuanhong ordered, all of you, get out. Yes, sovereign. The 8 disciples of the Guiyuan sect, who were moving the boxes, immediately left. Elder Wu waved his hand and the door of the warehouse closed automatically. Immediately, only Ting Qingshan, Elder Wu, and Zhuge Yuanhong were left in the warehouse. Qingshan, is this the fiery gilt steel you were talking about? Zhuge Yuanhong walked to the front of a huge wooden box and lightly patted the lid. Immediately, some of the nails on the lid flew away. Then, he easily lifted the lid and the lid fell to the ground. Such a big box and so much fiery gilt steel. Even 8 elite disciples were able to move it here easily. It seems that the fiery gilt steel is very light. Elder Wu walked over and picked up a piece of blood-red fiery gilt steel. The fiery gilt steel was pure blood red without any impurities. It was very beautiful. It is very light. Elder Wu weighed it and said, it is much lighter than ordinary steel. It seems that a battle armor is indeed very light. Teacher, Elder Wu. Ting Qingshan looked at the fiery gilt steel ores in the box and smiled. In the land of the 9 prefectures, the hardest ores are the 10 millennia cold steel, which can only be found at the bottom of the North Sea, and the tungsten blood steel, which can only be found in the desolate land. The 10 millennia cold steel could be found in the frost jade pool of the Great Yen Mountain, but it couldn't be mined. However, both the 10 millennia cold steel and the tungsten blood steel are extremely rare. Moreover, they are extremely heavy. Ting Qingshan picked up a piece of fiery gilt steel and said, "In terms of hardness, the fiery gilt steel is only slightly inferior to the 10 millennia cold steel. It is much stronger than the dark steel. Even a hollow Dan innate expert couldn't pierce through it with a single sword strike." Zhuge Yuanhong squeezed with force, but the fiery gilt steel in his hand didn't change. Zhuge Yuanhong exerted force. Crack, a crack appeared on the fiery gilt steel. Tsk. It's really hard. I had to use all my strength to squeeze it with one hand. Zhuge Yuanhong revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. If I were to stab it with a sword, I would need to reach the true Dan innate expert realm to be able to pierce through it. Teacher, Elder Wu, the most important thing now is the forging method. Ting Qingshan said solemnly, "In the land of the 9 prefectures, we don't have any experience in forging the fiery gilt steel. It isn't easy to forge the fiery gilt steel, and it requires some time. Different ores require different forging methods to forge weapons. Some metals might be very hard, but their melting point might not be higher than metals that weren't hard. In the Gui Yuan sect, there are many skilled weaponsmiths. We will definitely be able to forge the fiery gilt steel into battle armor," Zhuge Yuanhong said. After witnessing the characteristics of the fiery gilt steel, Ting Qingshan understood. A troop of cavalrymen clad in fiery gilt steel battle armor was probably even more terrifying than the cavalrymen of the northeastern king, Hong Tian. If even a hollow Dan innate expert couldn't pierce through it with a single sword strike, then who would be able to stop such a troop of cavalrymen? Among the treasures that Ting Qingshan had brought, the fiery gilt steel was undoubtedly the most important. That night, the Gui Yuan sect arranged for 6 experienced weaponsmiths to study the fiery gilt steel in detail. They wanted to forge a set of battle armor using the fiery gilt steel. This isn't right. Why isn't the fiery gilt steel melting? There's something wrong with the iron-dissolving potion. Ting Qingshan's jinx was right. It was extremely difficult to forge the fiery gilt steel. The weaponsmiths had used many methods to forge the fiery gilt steel. The melting point of the fiery gilt steel was extremely high. Although Ting Qingshan had memorized the methods used in the Duanmu continent, some of the required materials couldn't be found in the land of the 9 prefectures. "It seems like there's going to be some trouble," Ting Qingshan said softly to Zhuge Yuanhong with a frown as he stood in a corner. Zhuge Yuanhong nodded. There was a hint of worry between his brows. "It's all right. When we first discovered the tungsten blood steel and the 10 millennia cold steel, we spent a lot of time to find a way to forge weapons with them. Even some rare natural treasures could be used to forge weapons. The fiery gilt steel? We will definitely find a way within 10 days, Zhuge Yuanhong said. Chapter 443. Even if he stayed in the Gui Yuan sect, he wouldn't be able to help forge the fiery gilt steel armor. Therefore, the next morning, Ting Qingshan returned to Nanxing County with his men. In the training field of the Li residence in Nanxing County, roar roar, the 6-legged blade-like Qi happily roared at Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan had been away for 8 or 9 days. During these 8 or 9 days, it hadn't had the chance to watch the metal element fist. Blade-like Qi, you are working hard now. When you were in Duanmu continent, you were too lazy to sleep. Now, you are working very hard. Ting Qingshan smiled as he touched the 6-legged blade-like Qi's cold and ferocious blade-like legs. There were sharp spikes on the blade-like legs. Qingshan, the 6-legged blade-like Qi, is jealous of Little Blue. Of course it has to work hard, Li Jun said with a smile. Was everything okay at home while I was away? Ting Qingshan asked. Nothing. Everything is fine. Li Jun nodded. Now that she was living a peaceful and happy life, Li Jun had a graceful temperament. Ting Qingshan turned to look at his two disciples. Teacher. Ting Shou and Yang Dong greeted respectfully. Ah Dong. Ting Qingshan looked at Yang Dong and said, Before I left, I taught you the 49 azure lotus swords. Show me. Yes, teacher. Yang Dong held a bamboo pole in his hand. This bamboo pole wasn't an ordinary bamboo pole. It was a sword sheath made of high-quality green steel that looked like a bamboo pole to confuse people. Phew! As soon as Yang Dong unsheathed the sword, he moved in a strange arc as though he had transformed into a gust of wind. The shadow of the sword in his hand was like a venomous snake spitting out its tongue. Every time the sword pierced out, a chi sound would be heard. Yang Dong's body was slightly plump. When he performed the qing gong, he looked like a fat gourd that swayed continuously. Ting Qingshan raised his eyebrows as he thought to himself, This Yang Dong does indeed have a good understanding of sword arts. That's right. The Green Lotus sword art focuses on illusion and speed. Yang Dong has walked the path of being unpredictable and fast. In just 8 or 9 days, his achievements in swordsmanship are very close to his father, Old Wang. Seeing Yang Dong practicing, Ting Qingshan was very disappointed. However, as he watched Yang Dong practice his sword, it exceeded Ting Qingshan's expectations. This made Ting Qingshan very pleasantly surprised. Actually, it wasn't strange that Yang Dong's swordsmanship was at such a high level. Before he met Ting Qingshan, Yang Dong's sword thrusting art was created by himself. He practiced it thousands of times every day, and Yang Dong's foundation was extremely solid. The Azure Lotus Sword song that Yang Dong was practicing now originated from the Azure Lotus Sword song passed down by the omnipotent expert Li Tai Bai. Later on, Ting Qingshan adapted this sword art according to Yang Dong's temperament, and it was indeed suitable for Yang Dong. The 49 Green Lotus swords was broad and profound, and Yang Dong would gain some enlightenment almost every time he practiced it. He had accumulated it for several years when he was young, and now, he was constantly improving. Phew! After Yang Dong finished practicing this sword technique, he stopped and looked at Ting Qingshan. A look of anticipation and satisfaction flashed in his eyes. He asked himself, among his peers, no one could surpass him in swordsmanship. Even Li Jun had praised Ting Qingshan's swordsmanship before. Ah Dong is indeed as I saw him in the past. He has the ability to comprehend and perseverance. However, he is still young, and I'm afraid that he will become arrogant. Ting Qingshan knew very well what geniuses were most afraid of. Arrogance. If one was too arrogant, his achievements in the future would be very limited. It seems that you haven't been slacking off these past 8 or 9 days. Ting Qingshan smiled faintly and said, However, your swordsmanship is still very lacking. When I was your age, the realm of my spear arts had long surpassed your current level. Back then, my spear arts were purely self-created. Yang Dong was startled. Even the core disciples of the 8 supreme sects of the land of the 9 prefectures aren't qualified to learn this sword technique of yours. Ting Qingshan said coldly, Currently, you have only scratched the surface of this sword technique. However, I can't blame you. After all, you have only learned it for 8 or 9 days. It's still acceptable for you to have scratched the surface. Yang Dong felt uncomfortable when he heard this, and he felt somewhat indignant. Scratch the surface? His strength was only scratch the surface? In the past, he had mingled in a bandit's lair, and he knew very well how strong he was compared to ordinary people. Teacher. Yang Dong couldn't help but speak. Continue practicing. Ting Qingshan said faintly, You have only scratched the surface of this sword technique. If you can achieve some small success in your sword technique, I will let you go out to train. Scratch the surface? Although Yang Dong felt indignant when he thought of his teacher's strength, he felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his heart. When he was in Duanmu continent, He didn't know Ting Qingshan's age. However, on the way back, he already knew Ting Qingshan's age. In the land of the 9 prefectures, Yang Dong often heard people talking about the name Ting Qingshan in restaurants and other places when he went shopping. A 21-year-old emptiness realm expert. A 21-year-old god of war. Moreover, he created the branch of internal martial art. Compared to teacher, I am indeed far behind. Yang Dong suddenly realized, yes. How can I compare to ordinary bandits and mounted bandits? If I want to compare, I should compare myself with the true expert. I have teacher's guidance, and teacher created this technique by himself. How can I be complacent with this achievement? Moreover, according to teacher, even the emptiness Dan innate experts are no match for eldest martial brother. Eldest martial brother is not even 20 years old. He is only a few years older than me. I can't even compare myself to eldest martial brother, let alone teacher. After this comparison, Yang Dong felt the gap between them and no longer felt proud. However, Yang Dong was not a discouraged person. I can't compare myself to teacher, but at least I can't be weaker than eldest martial brother. Teacher, Yang Dong said solemnly, this disciple will definitely practice the sword art seriously. Yes. Ting Qingshan smiled and nodded. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Ting Qingshan stood at the edge of the training field and watched Yang Dong's chubby figure. Sometimes he was as slow as a tortoise, and sometimes he was as fast as a cunning rabbit. The changes in speed were extremely strange. The timing and position of Yang Dong's sword art were extremely strange. He was like an antelope hanging its horns, unconstrained and without any pattern. Yes. Ting Qingshan smiled and said, Ah Dong's style is sinister and strange. He likes to sneak attack people, which is different from Li Taibai's carefree and unrestrained style. The Green Lotus Sword Song was one of the 4 great divine codices. It was supposed to be carefree and unrestrained and full of illusions. However, different people had different styles. Firstly, Ting Qingshan's simplified 49 Azure Lotus swords leaned towards a cold and swift style. When it was performed by Yang Dong, the feeling of this sword art became even more distant. If Ting Qingshan was a mediocre teacher, he would probably scold his disciple. However, Ting Qingshan was very satisfied. Ah Dong ah Shou, Ting Qingshan shouted. Yang Dong and Ting Shou hastily stopped and hurried over. Teacher. The two looked at Ting Qingshan respectfully. A teacher for a day is a father for a lifetime. The kindness of a teacher was equivalent to teaching them the ability to establish a foothold in this world. Whether it was in Duanmu continent, the land of the 9 prefectures, or even in the internal martial arts of Ting Qingshan's previous life, the disciples all respected their teachers as if they were their fathers. Ah Dong, your sword art has improved a lot, Ting Qingshan said with a faint smile. However, your style is more strange. It's a sword art for killing people. Since it's a sword art for killing people, it can only be gradually perfected through killing people. Otherwise, it's just empty talk. When Ting Qingshan opened his mouth, Yang Dong's eyes immediately brightened. He had already guessed Ting Qingshan's intention. Ting Qingshan wanted him to go out and train. Ting Qingshan glanced at Yang Dong and sighed to himself. This second disciple of mine is too smart. I'm just worried that his cleverness will harm him in the future. Ah Shou, Ah Dong. Ting Qingshan took out a map from his bosom and threw it to Ting Shou. He instructed, this is the map of Yangzhou. These days, Ting Shou and Yang Dong had been learning the writing of the land of the 9 prefectures. Because the writing of the land of the 9 prefectures and the Duanmu continent was the same during Emperor Yu's era, the pronunciation was almost the same. Therefore, it wasn't difficult to learn. Now, Ting Shou and Yang Dong could read quite a few words. The number 1 mountain range in Yangzhou is the Tai A mountain range. It stretches across 3 counties and is 300 li long. Many businesses have to pass through the Tai A mountain range. Because of this, there are a large number of bandits in the Tai A mountain range. Ting Qingshan said solemnly, there are 8 large bandit gangs in the Tai A mountain range, and there are countless ordinary bandit gangs. Hundreds of thousands of bandits gather in the Tai A mountain range. Usually, they roar in the forest and sometimes they rob passing merchants. Ting Qingshan's words caused Ting Shou and Yang Dong's eyes to shine. Hundreds of thousands of bandits? It was impossible in Duanmu continent. In Duanmu continent, hundreds of clans fought for hegemony, and the bandits were very weak. A few hundred bandits could be considered a large gang. I want the 2 of you to go to the Tai A mountain range, Ting Qingshan instructed. Within a year, create a gang with at least 2,000 people. Haha, teacher, don't worry. You want eldest martial brother to go with me? With the help of an innate expert and me, I'm confident that I can create a big gang with 20,000 people, let alone 2,000 people. Yang Dong smiled proudly and said, bandits are like big fish eating small fish, and small fish eating shrimps. It's very simple. Ting Qingshan shook his head helplessly. This second disciple of his had been a bandit since he was young. He was the best at this kind of work. Remember, Ting Qingshan said solemnly, in the gang, we won't accept anyone who isn't brave and valiant. Secondly, in the mountain range, don't degenerate to the point of bullying the old, weak, women, and children. As for the rest, I don't care. If we want to be the most powerful bandits in the Tai A mountain range, we want the most powerful men. Bullying the old, weak, women, and children? I definitely won't accept those cowards, Yang Dong said with exultation. He had the demeanor of someone who controlled a big gang. Here are 30,000 taels of gold. It's enough for you to start a gang. Ting Qingshan took out a stack of gold notes and said, you can leave this afternoon. Yes, teacher. Yang Dong and Ting Shou hastily responded. Yang Dong's eyes lit up, and Ting Shou's eyes flickered with a ferocious glint. He grew up in a group of wild beasts, and the savagery of bandits suited Ting Shou the best. One is a ferocious beast, and the other has been a bandit since he was young. These are my Ting Qingshan's disciples. Ting Qingshan smiled bitterly in his heart. On the evening of the 3rd day after Ting Qingshan sent Yang Dong and Ting Shou away from Nanxing County to the Tai A mountain range, Ting Qingshan was sitting cross-legged and cultivating in the martial arts field. Ting Qingshan was the only one on the spacious martial arts field. For a moment, Ting Qingshan and the martial arts field seemed to have become one. Suddenly, someone actually sneaked into my place? Ting Qingshan opened his eyes. Whoosh! A figure suddenly landed on the martial arts field. He immediately noticed Ting Qingshan and revealed a surprised expression. You entered without being invited. Ting Qingshan smiled calmly. Humph! The black-clothed figure suddenly dashed forward and dashed in front of Ting Qingshan at lightning speed. A streak of saber light suddenly flashed and silently slashed towards Ting Qingshan's head. Ting Qingshan remained sitting cross-legged on the ground calmly. His right palm struck out like a huge seal. His palm struck the saber light directly. Bang! The saber light shattered like the moon in the water. The black-clothed figure involuntarily retreated a few steps and crashed into a tree. With a bang, the tree, which was as thick as a person's thigh, suddenly trembled and fell with a loud bang. Who are you? Ting Qingshan's cold gaze swept over and he said, Tell me your name. Otherwise, die. The black-clothed figure stared at Ting Qingshan in shock. He then hastily removed the black cloth on his face, revealing a cold and callous face that seemed to be carved out of stone. There were traces of blood on the corner of his mouth. At this moment, the black-clothed figure hastily cupped his hands and said respectfully, I am Chao Yen, the commander of the Energy Slaughterer Guard of the Heavenly God Palace. Greetings, Lord Huha. Chapter 444. The Heavenly God Palace? Ting Qingshan couldn't help but feel shocked. How did the Heavenly God Palace find me? They even know that I am Huha? Ting Qingshan was secretly shocked. Back then, he used the name Huha to travel across the northern Great Prairie and obtained the position of foreign dignitary of the God of Heaven Mountain. However, when he returned to the land of the 9 prefectures, he and little June didn't make it public. Therefore, very few people knew about it. Instantly, many possibilities flashed through Ting Qingshan's mind. He laughed and said, "Haha, the Heavenly God Palace is indeed powerful. They actually found me so quickly. Lord Huha, we have been looking for you for more than 3 years." The black-clothed man cupped his hands and said, "May I ask where the goddess is? Are you here to look for Li Jun?" Ting Qingshan frowned. "I am looking for the goddess and Lord Huha at the same time." The black-clothed man, Chao Yan's facial expression suddenly changed. Not far away, an enormous creature emerged from the ground. It had a triangular head, 2 long and thin antennae, and 2 terrifying blade-like legs that glowed with an ice-cold golden luster. The 6-legged blade-like cheese head emerged from the deep pit. Chao Yan was obviously startled by it. The 6-legged blade-like Qi stared coldly at Chao Yan. What a powerful demonic beast! Chao Yan was secretly shocked. He was considered one of the upper echelons of the Heavenly God Palace, and had seen many Golden Dan innate demonic beasts. However, when he saw the 6-legged blade-like Qi, Chao Yan felt a great pressure. This Huha is indeed worthy of being called the Demon Arata. He was able to defeat the first godly general. Not only is he powerful, but this demonic beast is also very terrifying. Immediately, Ting Qingshan's position in Chao Yan's heart improved greatly. Just when Chao Yan was feeling slightly fearful suddenly, "Who is it?" A shout came from afar, and a white-clothed figure flew over gracefully. Ting Qingshan turned his head and smiled. It was Li Jun. Li Jun looked at the collapsed tree and the messy training field. She was extremely shocked. As she ran towards Ting Qingshan, she looked at the black-clothed man, Chao Yan, confusedly. "Chao Yan greets the goddess." The black-clothed man, Chao Yan, smiled. "You are Commander Chao?" Li Jun walked to Ting Qingshan's side and looked at Chao Yan in surprise. She was pleasantly surprised. "Commander Chao, why are you here?" How did you know I was here?" Seeing Li Jun's expression, Ting Qingshan smiled and asked, "Little Jun, do you know him?" "Yes, back when I was learning the beast language from Martial Uncle, Commander Chao went to see Martial Uncle. At that time, I met Commander Chao once." Li Jun smiled and turned to look at the black-clothed man, Chao Yan. "Commander Chao is exactly the same as before. You haven't changed at all. Goddess, you've changed a lot since then." Commander Chao shook his head and smiled. "It's only been a few years, but our Heavenly God Palace's goddess is already married. If this news spreads, I'm afraid many young people in the Heavenly God Palace will be disappointed." Li Jun smiled. Ting Qingshan did not say anything and just watched from the side. "Commander Chao." Li Jun smiled and asked, "Why did you come here?" "We found out that the goddess has appeared, especially your marriage. This matter shocked many people in the palace. Even the High Priestess came personally." Commander Chao stared at Li Jun and said, "Goddess, no matter what, you should have told the High Priestess before you got married. You should know how the High Priestess feels about you." Ting Qingshan was puzzled. "High Priestess? Little Jun, who is the High Priestess?" Ting Qingshan asked. "He is the teacher who took me away," Li Jun answered. Ting Qingshan knew that Li Jun's teacher was a woman. She was very concerned about Li Jun and treated her like her own daughter. "When I got married to Big Brother Huha, we were on an isolated island overseas, so we couldn't inform our teacher. Therefore we acted first and reported later," Li Jun giggled. "Reckless, reckless." Commander Chao shook his head. To a super sect, a master of the beast language had an extremely high status. With Li Jun's talent, The Heavenly God Palace had nurtured Li Jun as the #1 master of the beast language. How could the Heavenly God Palace allow Li Jun to marry an outsider? However, Li Jun acted first and reported later, which angered many people in the Heavenly God Palace. Is teacher angry? Li Jun asked anxiously. Of course she is angry. Chao Yen shook his head and said, during the battle on the Heavenly Rock Island, foreign dignitary Lord Huha went out to the sea while you, goddess, suddenly disappeared. When we were on the God of Heaven mountain, we knew that you were close to Lord Huha. At that time, we guessed that you went out to the sea with Lord Huha. Now, it seems that we were right. Goddess, the High Priestess has arrived at Yangzhou. Chao Yen said, you should see the High Priestess first. Teacher came to Yangzhou? Li Jun raised her eyebrows. Lord Huha. Chao Yen looked at Ting Qingshan and said, the High Priestess also ordered me to let you accompany the goddess. The High Priestess wants to see you. See me? Ting Qingshan looked at Li Jun and asked, Little Jun, do you want to go? Yes. Li Jun nodded. A hint of desire could be seen in her eyes as she said, Teacher has done me a great favor. Moreover, I haven't seen her for over 3 years. I also want to see her. Ting Qingshan nodded and said, I will go with you. Ting Qingshan didn't care about the High Priestess summon. He wasn't someone who would be summoned by the High Priestess. Moreover, Ting Qingshan's identity was a foreign dignitary. The foreign dignitaries and the God of Heaven Palace supported each other. They weren't superior and subordinate. However, since Li Jun was going, he naturally had to go. Moreover, the High Priestess was Li Jun's teacher. Since Li Jun didn't have parents, her teacher could be said to be half a mother to Li Jun. Goddess, Lord Huha, when do you plan to leave? Chao Yen asked. Where is teacher in Yangzhou? Li Jun hastily asked. Chao Yen smiled and answered, in Lushur City in Nanshan County. Li Jun was astonished. How about this? Ting Qingshan said, it's already dark. Let's depart for Lushur City tomorrow morning. Commander Chao Yen, why don't you stay with me for the night? The moment Ting Qingshan spoke, Li Jun and Chao Yen agreed. Late at night, Ting Qingshan sat on the bed with his upper body naked. Li Jun, who was only wearing a thin undergarment, lay in Ting Qingshan's arms. I'm excited when I think about being able to see teacher tomorrow. I just don't know if teacher will be angry with me for getting married so suddenly. Li Jun smiled as she looked up at Ting Qingshan and asked, Qingshan, do you think teacher will be unhappy and blame me when we meet tomorrow? Ting Qingshan smiled and said, she might blame you, but your teacher will still be very happy. After all, it's a reunion between master and disciple. Yes. Li Jun nodded. Little Jun, your teacher is the High Priestess? What High Priestess? Ting Qingshan asked. Although he knew that Li Jun had a teacher, Ting Qingshan didn't know much about her. Li Jun smiled helplessly and said, I knew it. My teacher is the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. As for the internal situation of the Snowy Lotus cult, I don't know much. Back then, I learned the language of beasts from my teacher for a few months. After that, I went to the God of Heaven mountain. I didn't manage the internal affairs of the Snowy Lotus cult. Snowy Lotus cult? Ting Qingshan nodded. Yes. It's getting late. Let's sleep. We still have to go to Lushur City tomorrow morning. Ting Qingshan smiled as he touched Li Jun's nose. Li Jun sniffed and looked at Ting Qingshan reproachfully. Yes, I'm going to sleep. She then shrunk into the blanket. That morning, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun instructed the 6-legged blade-like Qi to stay quietly in the inner court. If they wanted to go out, it would be best to do so underground and not cause any trouble. Then, Ting Qingshan, Li Jun, and Chao Yen left Nanshan County City and headed towards Lushur City, which was about 200 li away from Nanshan County City. Chao Yen and the other 2 rode on top-notch warhorses and arrived at Lushur City by noon. We've arrived at Lushur City. Chao Yen smiled as he looked ahead. Lushur City. Li Jun smiled as well. She turned to look at Ting Qingshan and said, "Big brother Hua." To her surprise, she found that Ting Qingshan had a serious expression on his face. "What's wrong?" Li Jun asked softly. Ting Qingshan stared at Lushur City in shock. Because Ting Qingshan could clearly sense that within his domain there was a powerful aura in Lushur City, the aura of an emptiness realm expert. Within his domain, the aura of an emptiness realm expert was as dazzling as the sun amidst the myriad of stars. It could be easily sensed. Lushur City, such a small city, actually has an emptiness realm expert? Ting Qingshan was shocked. Could it be Little Jun's teacher? Ting Qingshan couldn't help but guess. He could sense that the aura was the aura of lightning. It was as if the aura of lightning had gathered. "Big brother Hua, big brother Hua?" Li Jun called out twice. "It's okay." Ting Qingshan smiled. Li Jun felt slightly puzzled when she saw this. However, Ting Qingshan calmed himself down and thought to himself, this unknown emptiness realm expert, his aura is purely the aura of lightning. It seems that he only cultivates the Tao of lightning and doesn't have any other Taos. He probably only controls 20 to 30% of the power of the heavens and the earth. "Let's go." Ting Qingshan smiled and squeezed the horse's belly. After Ting Qingshan, Li Jun and Chao Yan entered Lushur City, Chao Yan quickly led them to a mansion. It seems that this emptiness realm expert might really be Li Jun's teacher. Ting Qingshan was secretly shocked. He could clearly sense that the aura of the emptiness realm expert was in the mansion. "Let's go in." Chao Yan smiled and leaped off the warhorse. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun also leaped off the warhorses. The guards at the entrance of the mansion immediately came to lead the horses. It was obvious that they knew Chao Yan. Under Chao Yan's lead, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun entered the mansion. After a while, "Goddess, the High Priestess is in this garden," Chao Yan said. "Teacher." Li Jun looked at the quiet and spacious garden in front of her. She became slightly excited. "High Priestess, the goddess and foreign dignitary Luo have arrived," Chao Yan said loudly. His voice traveled into the garden. "Little Jun, why don't you come in?" A pleasant female voice came from the garden. "Yes, teacher." Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan excitedly. Ting Qingshan smiled and held Li Jun's hand. The couple entered the garden together. The layout of the garden was very beautiful. The bamboo forest rustled in the wind. Ting Qingshan could see through the distance of over 10 zhang. A woman dressed in a long blue cloak was standing there. Beside her was a godly eagle that was as big as a house. An emptiness realm expert. It's this godly eagle? Ting Qingshan was shocked. Li Jun's teacher was not an emptiness realm expert. P.S. Chapter 1 is here. Chapter 445. The domain of the emptiness realm expert could only sense the aura. Before he saw it with his own eyes, Ting Qingshan would never have thought that the aura of the emptiness realm expert was actually that of a godly hawk. What a huge godly hawk! Ting Qingshan's gaze fell upon the godly hawk. Most of the feathers on the godly hawk's body were black, while the feathers on its neck and head were green. The feathers on its head were golden. If the undying phoenix was a noble empress, then this godly hawk was a cold and fierce assassin. The hawk's eyes were like sharp arrows as it stared at Ting Qingshan. The Tao of Thunderbolt? This godly hawk is the godly Thunderbolt hawk. Ting Qingshan's heart trembled. Ah, that's right. When I was fleeing, I passed by Huyue County City. At that time, an emptiness realm demonic beast, the godly Thunderbolt hawk, attacked Xiao Yao Palace, one of the 8 supreme sects. Could it be this godly Thunderbolt hawk? There were only so many emptiness realm demonic beasts in the world. In the land of the 9 prefectures, there were probably only 1 or 2 godly Thunderbolt hawks that had reached the emptiness realm. The godly hawk before him was most likely the godly Thunderbolt hawk that had attacked Xiao Yao Palace. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult stood beside the godly hawk and watched Ting Qingshan and Li Jun. When the high priestess saw Li Jun, a trace of excitement flashed across her eyes. However, when she saw Ting Qingshan, her expression turned cold again. This Huha is quite capable. He actually discovered that Uncle Chun is extraordinary. Little June, why are you still here? The high priestess shouted coldly. Teacher. Li Jun hastily walked over, and Ting Qingshan followed behind her. Teacher, it's my fault. Li Jun stood before the high priestess with her head lowered. Ting Qingshan looked at the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult. The high priestess was dressed in a long blue cloak. Her skin was fair, and she exuded an endless charm. Even Ting Qingshan had to admit that in terms of charm, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult was even more charming than the young Li Jun. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult doesn't look old at all. I reckon that she attained the innate realm at the age of 30 or 40. At this moment, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult took a step forward and held Li Jun's hand. She scrutinized Li Jun like a mother scrutinizing her daughter. In the end, a smile appeared on her face as she said, you didn't lose any weight. Your complexion is rosy as well. It seems like you and Huha have been living a good life. Li Jun couldn't help but reveal a trace of shyness. Humph. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult purposely snorted and said, however, you, child, do you really respect me? He didn't even ask his master about his marriage, and he didn't tell his master about his return either. It's been 3 years. Master has been looking for you for 3 whole years, but I haven't even found a shadow of you. Girls are extroverted. Teacher. Li Jun couldn't help but call out. You little girl, I will discipline you later. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult pulled Li Jun to her side. Simultaneously, she looked at Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan wore a smile on his face. Although the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult was displeased with Li Jun, Ting Qingshan could tell that the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult doted on Li Jun Huha. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult stared at Ting Qingshan and sneered. You do have some ability. You have been staring at my godly eagle the moment you arrived. It seems like you do have some ability to defeat the first godly general of the god of Heaven Mountain. However, you do have some ability. You didn't send me a betrothal gift, but you directly married my disciple. What is this? Ting Qingshan froze. In the land of the 9 prefectures, matchmaking and betrothal gifts were necessary for a man and a woman to get married. Since Li Jun didn't have parents, the elders were her teachers. Her teachers were like her parents. Normally, Ting Qingshan should have come to propose marriage. However, they were in Duanmu continent at that time, so Ting Qingshan didn't mention it. Now, however, Li Jun's teacher was rebuking Ting Qingshan in person. High priestess of the snowy lotus cult, this is indeed my fault. Ting Qingshan apologized. Teacher, we were on an isolated island overseas at that time. We didn't. Li Jun hastily said. So what if we were on an isolated island overseas? The high priestess raised her beautiful eyes and snorted coldly. Can't you bear with it and wait until we return to the land of the 9 prefectures before getting married? I think Huha, you probably know that the heavenly god palace won't easily marry Li Jun to you. That's why you chose to do it on that isolated island overseas. What's done can't be undone. You act first and report later, right? Ting Qingshan couldn't help but feel helpless. Cook rice and life? Act first and report later? What is this? Teacher, I wanted it. Li Jun hastily tried to explain. You are still speaking up for him. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult glared at Li Jun and said, Little Jun, don't trust men so easily. Men are not as simple as you think. Why didn't Huha say that he wanted to marry you when we were on the god of Heaven Mountain? Also, why didn't he tell the people of the god of Heaven Mountain that you were sailing with him? Why did he take you away secretly? Ting Qingshan and Li Jun glanced at each other. Li Jun could also feel Ting Qingshan's distress. Take him away secretly? At that time, Li Jun had caught up with Ting Qingshan's ship. It seems that the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult is very angry. Ting Qingshan thought to himself, that's right. Li Jun is the #1 beast-taming master in the Heavenly God Palace. The Heavenly God Palace will never marry Li Jun to an outsider. Isn't this the same as giving away her treasure? I'm afraid that the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult is also reprimanded by the Heavenly God Palace. According to Ting Qingshan's understanding, the Heavenly God Palace was an extremely large organization. It governed the god of Heaven Mountain and the Snowy Lotus cult. As for how many branches there were, Ting Qingshan didn't know. However, it was obvious that the status of the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult was slightly lower than the god of the god of Heaven Mountain. However, the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult could bring along an emptiness realm demonic beast. Even if her status was lower than the god of the god of Heaven Mountain, it was still very close. Little June, you reached the innate realm? The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Li Jun froze. Teacher, just now you. Li Jun was slightly surprised. I feel that you are different from before. Looking at your eyes, the divine light is restrained, and your spirit has obviously improved. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult revealed a joyful expression as she said, Therefore, when I held your hand just now, a trace of innate true origin seeped into your body. I didn't expect that you would really reach the innate realm. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult was so excited that her face turned completely red. A 17-year-old innate expert. This. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult was extremely excited. Li Jun could only look at Ting Qingshan helplessly. Ting Qingshan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Li Jun had only reached the innate realm by relying on the blazing flame red lotus seed. However, the blazing flame red lotus seed didn't exist in the land of the 9 prefectures. Therefore, the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult naturally believed that Li Jun had broken through on her own. I didn't expect that my disciple could be so powerful. My senior martial brothers have always thought that they are great, and their direct disciples are all very powerful. However, compared to you, they are far inferior. A 17-year-old innate expert. The beautiful eyes of the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult brightened as she said, Only the escaped Ting Qingshan of the Guyuan sect can compare to you. Li Jun froze. Ting Qingshan rubbed his nose. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult still didn't know that the Huha before her was Ting Qingshan. If she knew that the escaped Ting Qingshan was in front of her, and that he was already an emptiness realm expert, she would probably be scared silly. Huha! The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult stared at Ting Qingshan, and then at her disciple. She then humphed helplessly and said, Huha, you married the future High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. Naturally, you have to join the Heavenly God Palace. Is there any problem with this? The future High Priestess? Ting Qingshan was shocked. Teacher, I want to be the High Priestess? Li Jun hastily said, This can't be done. Humph. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult glared at her and said, The Saintess of the Snowy Lotus cult can only be the High Priestess. I only have 3 direct disciples. The High Priestess can only choose between the 3 of you. Although your eldest martial sister and second martial sister have reached the innate realm, your eldest martial sister is over 100 years old, and your second martial sister is over 80 years old. How can they be compared to you? If you don't become the High Priestess, who will? Huha, if you join the Heavenly God Palace, it will only be beneficial for you. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult stared at Ting Qingshan. High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, Ting Qingshan cupped his hands and said with a smile, I want to establish my own sect, so. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult smiled amiably and said, Huha, isn't it just establishing your own sect? The Heavenly God Palace doesn't forbid this as long as you reach the emptiness realm and become an emptiness realm expert. As long as you reach the emptiness realm and become an emptiness realm expert, you can establish your own sect. Ting Qingshan was slightly confused. One could establish their own sect after reaching the emptiness realm? It was obvious that the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult had yet to reach the emptiness realm. How did she establish the Snowy Lotus cult? High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, there is no need to discuss this further. Ting Qingshan smiled faintly. His tone was very firm, leaving no room for negotiation. You. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult's face darkened. You can leave first. I want to talk to my disciple, the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult said coldly. Ting Qingshan cupped his hands and left the garden. As the cold wind blew, Ting Qingshan felt very refreshed. It seems that the Heavenly God Palace is very dissatisfied with me marrying little June and wants me to join them. Ting Qingshan shook his head. Even if he became a foreign dignitary, he would still be a guest and not a member of the Heavenly God Palace. After a while, Hoo-ha, come in. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult's voice sounded. Ting Qingshan smiled and shook his head. He had no choice but to enter the garden. At this moment, Li Jun was standing beside the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. The High Priestess stared at Ting Qingshan with an unsightly expression and said, "Since you are unwilling to join the Heavenly God Palace, I will not force you. However, little June is a member of the Heavenly God Palace. Since he has joined, there is no reason for him to leave. If he betrays the sect, he will be hunted down by the sect." Ting Qingshan was shocked and hastily glanced at Li Jun. At this moment, Li Jun winked at him. Seeing this, Ting Qingshan heaved a sigh of relief. High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, little June's marriage has nothing to do with whether she leaves the Heavenly God Palace or not, Ting Qingshan said. I have just ordered little June to go to Qingzhou. She will be in charge of 200,000 soldiers under the red fiery flag and the azure dragon flag. The High Priestess looked at Ting Qingshan and said, "Of course, she may not be able to control the situation alone. You are the foreign dignitary, so it is not appropriate for me to order you. As her husband, it is up to you whether you are willing to help little June." Ting Qingshan frowned. "Command 200,000 soldiers? What for?" Ting Qingshan's facial expression changed slightly. "You are so perceptive. Can't you guess?" The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult teased. "Qingzhou is under the control of Xiao Yao Palace. However, you are able to mobilize 200,000 soldiers in Qingzhou?" Ting Qingshan was shocked. "High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, are you going to? After enduring for over 100 years, it is time for us to take action." The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult said calmly, "Qingzhou is the most populous prefecture in the land of the 9 prefectures. Xiao Yao Palace is not qualified to control it." Ting Qingshan's facial expression changed drastically. A huge wave of emotions surged in his heart. The 8 supreme sects of the land of the 9 prefectures had been peaceful for over 1,000 years. For over 1,000 years, the situation in the land of the 9 prefectures had never changed. However, now the situation in the land of the 9 prefectures was finally going to change. P.S. 2 chapters are finished. On the 2nd day of the new year, everyone is having fun. Tomato is also calling for some tickets. If you have tickets, throw them at Tomato. Chapter 446. Turmoil in the 9 states? Alright. In this way, I can fish in troubled waters. Ting Qingshan instantly had many thoughts in his mind. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult continued, "Little June, the army of the Red Fiery Banner and the Azure Dragon Banner of the Snowy Lotus cult is gathering at the military camp outside of Tailong City. How about this? Tonight, when it gets dark, the 2 of you will ride the Divine Eagle with me to Tailong City. Suddenly, her gaze fell upon Ting Qingshan and a smile appeared on her face as she said, "Of course, foreign dignitary Huha. You are a foreign dignitary, so I can't force you. Whether you want to go or not depends on yourself." Tai Long Cheng? Ting Qingshan was startled. When the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult saw that Ting Qingshan didn't respond, she couldn't help but frown. "Huha, my disciple and I still have many private matters to discuss. I can't keep you company." He immediately pulled Li Jun's hand and led her into the pavilion. Li Jun could only helplessly look at Ting Qingshan and smile apologetically. Ting Qingshan nodded and smiled, signaling Li Jun to accompany her master with his eyes. In the garden, only the giant condor and Ting Qingshan were left. The giant condor's gaze fell on Ting Qingshan from time to time. The warning in its eyes was very strong. Eagles are proud and aloof. This godly thunderbolt hawk is an emptiness realm demonic beast, and it is a bird that is adept at flying. I don't need to mention how precious it is. I didn't expect that the heavenly god palace would let the godly thunderbolt hawk protect the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. It seems that the heavenly god palace values the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult very much. Ting Qingshan did not have a bad impression of the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. With the temperament of the high priestess, Ting Qingshan would have ignored her if she were an ordinary person. However, the other party was his wife's master. According to the normal procedure of marriage proposal, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun would have to bow to the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. Since he was an elder, in the eyes of an elder, he was somewhat dissatisfied with the fact that he had abducted Li Jun for more than 3 years. That was only natural. There was no harm in saying a few words. "Shening." Ting Qingshan smiled and cupped his hands at Shening. Then, he turned and left the garden. The godly thunderbolt hawk watched as Ting Qingshan left. Lightning flickered in its eyes before it lazily closed its eyes. Outside the garden, Ting Qingshan randomly chose a pavilion and sat down. "Lord Huha." A voice sounded. Ting Qingshan turned his head and saw that it was Commander Chao Yan. "Commander Chao." Ting Qingshan smiled. "Have a seat." "Lord Huha, how was the discussion with the high priestess?" Commander Chao laughed as he sat down at the side. When our sect leader is truly enraged, he is extremely terrifying. In the entire heavenly deity palace, even the few heavenly deities have to give way to the sect leader. Ting Qingshan's heart thumped. "It's all right. Just a few words." Ting Qingshan smiled. "Yes. The high priestess dotes on the goddess very much. The high priestess should be happy that the goddess has returned." Commander Chao smiled and said, "Although the high priestess is slightly dissatisfied with you, Lord Huha, since you are married to the goddess, the high priestess will love you as well. Even if she only said a few words to you, she should be very concerned about you. She is like a mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law." Ting Qingshan froze. "A mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law? Lord Huha." Commander Chao lowered his voice. Ting Qingshan saw the special expression on Chao Yan's face. "Lord Huha is an outstanding person. I admire you for fighting with Lord. After lunch, I will leave Lushur City. However, before I leave, I have a few words to say to Lord Huha." Chao Yan said sincerely. Ting Qingshan's heart thumped. He smiled and said, "Commander Chao, please speak." "Lord Huha, you are a foreign dignitary and not a member of the heavenly deity palace. No one can order you. However, there are a few people in the heavenly god palace that you cannot offend, especially the gods of heaven. However, our high priestess is even more dangerous than the gods of heaven." Chao Yan said solemnly, "If you have a good relationship with the high priestess, you will be safe even if something big happens in the future. However, if your relationship with the high priestess becomes strained, then you will be in big trouble. I would rather offend the gods of heaven than the high priestess." Ting Qingshan was shocked. "The high priestess is a big tree in the heavenly god palace. That's all I have to say." Chao Yan stood up and cupped his hands. I will take my leave now. Thank you, Commander Chao. Ting Qingshan stood up as well. As he watched Chao Yan leave, many thoughts flashed through Ting Qingshan's mind. Actually, since the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult was his wife's teacher, he didn't want to put his wife in a difficult position. Unless he had no other choice, Ting Qingshan would not offend the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. It seems that the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult has a special status in the Heavenly God Palace. Ting Qingshan could sense Chao Yan's words and couldn't help but smile. This Commander Chao has done me a favor. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult held on to Li Jun and talked for nearly 4 hours before she let Li Jun go. Only Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were in the room. With the help of Ting Qingshan's domain, Ting Qingshan knew that no one was watching them. Qingshan, Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan and said apologetically, "My teacher has such a temper. I'm fine." Ting Qingshan teased as he touched Li Jun's nose and said, "It's not your teacher's fault. I kidnapped you for 3 years. It would be strange if your teacher wasn't angry." Li Jun couldn't help but smile happily. "Yes. Qingshan, are you going to Qingzhou?" Li Jun asked anxiously. "If you have something to do, it's fine if you don't go. According to teacher, this time, the army will rise very quickly. It will mainly be a battle between the Emptiness Realm experts of the upper echelons. When the battle between the Emptiness Realm experts is over, it will be much easier for the army to attack the city." "I'll go to Qingzhou," Ting Qingshan answered. When Li Jun heard this, her eyes brightened. "Qingshan, you're going?" "Yes." Ting Qingshan nodded. "Little Jun, I know, the Heavenly God Palace won't let you leave." Ting Qingshan smiled helplessly. "Especially after your teacher found out that you reached the innate realm. You're a 17-year-old innate expert and a beast-taming grandmaster. How could they let you go?" "Yes." Li Jun bit her lips and nodded. "I don't want to be enemies with the Heavenly God Palace for now. The Heavenly God Palace doesn't threaten me." Ting Qingshan smiled and said, "Since you can't leave the Heavenly God Palace, then you can only accept it. I thought about it carefully. Staying in the Heavenly God Palace will be very beneficial to me in the future." Li Jun was surprised. "Very beneficial?" "Yes. Tailong City is located in the south of Qingzhou." Ting Qingshan smiled and said, "When the Heavenly God Palace conquers Qingzhou, their army will expand again. With how much the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult values you, you will probably be able to control an army of hundreds of thousands. The Guiyuan sect will fight against Qinghu Island. I only need to use the army in your hands to move slightly, and you will be able to intimidate Qinghu Island and make them suspicious." Ting Qingshan smiled and said, "I also believe that the Heavenly God Palace will give you face, and they will also give me face. The fact that I reached the Emptiness Realm will probably be exposed soon." When Li Jun heard this, she understood what Ting Qingshan meant. He wanted the Guiyuan sect to have one more ally, the Heavenly God Palace. Of course, it would be the foreign dignitary Huha who would be the middleman. "Yes." Li Jun nodded hastily and said, "If the Heavenly God Palace finds out that the foreign dignitary is an Emptiness Realm expert, they will definitely respect you. Qingshan, why didn't you tell my teacher that you reached the Emptiness Realm?" Li Jun asked. "There is no hurry." Ting Qingshan shook his head and said, "The longer we delay, the more beneficial it will be for you and me. During this period of time, we will be able to familiarize ourselves with and control the 200,000 soldiers of the Red Fiery Banner and the Azure Dragon Banner. If we are exposed now, we will attract the attention of the Heavenly God Palace, and we will be in a lot of trouble." Ting Qingshan also knew that he could not hide the fact that he was an Emptiness Realm expert. Once the godly Thunderbolt Hawk came into contact with the people of the Heavenly God Palace who understood the language of beasts, it would probably tell them. However, I cannot tell the heavenly god palace that I am Ting Qingshan for now. Ting Qingshan said solemnly, a 21-year-old emptiness realm expert. This is too shocking. If the heavenly god palace knew about this, I don't know what the consequences would be. Li Jun nodded. A 21-year-old emptiness realm expert. Some overbearing emptiness realm experts would probably decide to eradicate those who were too threatening. They would only choose to befriend those who were not sure of being eradicated. Ting Qingshan did not know the temperament of the master of the heavenly god palace. Therefore, he did not dare to reveal this. When my wings grow, for example, the six-legged blade-like chi reaches the emptiness realm. Or the undying phoenix, Little Blue, will come. Only then will I be able to fight against those great sections. Ting Qingshan said, therefore, I will still use the identity of Huha for now. Even if they know that Huha has become an emptiness realm expert, they will not have the intention to kill him. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult did not have any children. She treated Li Jun like her own daughter and wanted to train Li Jun to be the successor of the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. At the same time, she also wanted to rely on Li Jun to tie Huha tightly to the heavenly god palace. However, she wanted Ting Qingshan to work for her. Wasn't Ting Qingshan trying to use the heavenly god palace temporarily? After all, the heavenly god palace was extremely powerful. During the early stages of development, many things would be much easier with the help of the heavenly god palace. The sky was already dark. Huha, Little Jun, come up, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult shouted with a smile as she sat on the back of the enormous godly hawk. Li Jun leaped up and landed on the back of the godly thunderbolt hawk. However, when Ting Qingshan leaped up, the godly thunderbolt hawk dodged swiftly. Simultaneously, it glared at Ting Qingshan with its sharp eyes, warning him. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult was stunned. She patted the feathers on the neck of the godly thunderbolt hawk. However, the godly thunderbolt hawk continued to stare coldly at Ting Qingshan. Ha, Little Jun, it seems like the godly hawk is unwilling to carry your man. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult smiled as she looked down at Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan smiled and said, High priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, take Little Jun and head to Tailong City first. I will think of a way to get there myself. I will probably be able to get there by tomorrow morning. Actually, with the speed of an emptiness realm expert, they could reach Tailong City of Qingzhou in 1 to 4 hours. Alright. Little Jun and I will leave first. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult smiled as she looked down at Ting Qingshan and said, Huha, I am very happy that you can go with Little Jun this time. While smiling, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult rode on the godly thunderbolt hawk and rapidly soared into the sky. Li Jun was still looking down. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the godly thunderbolt hawk disappeared into the horizon. This godly thunderbolt hawk is really on guard against me. Ting Qingshan shook his head and smiled as he said to himself, That's right. This godly thunderbolt hawk is not afraid of me in a head-on battle. However, if I get on its back, I can kill it at any time. It's not strange that it doesn't want me to get on its back. How could the godly thunderbolt hawk allow an unfamiliar emptiness realm expert to get on its back? Tailong City? Ting Qingshan gazed northward and thought to himself, an army of 200,000. 2 banners already have this many soldiers. How many soldiers are there in total? TSK. The heavenly god palace is really rich and overbearing. Immediately, Ting Qingshan's figure blurred. With a step, he disappeared from the mansion. Chapter 447. Ting Qingshan did not use the power of the heavens and earth to travel. Instead, he used the earth elemental art to comprehend the earth elemental Tao as he traveled. Ting Qingshan climbed a mountain with one step and stepped on the water with the other. Just like that, he traveled in a straight line from Lushur City in Nanxing County to Qingzhou. Inside a barren mountain outside Iron Dragon City, Ting Qingshan was carrying a long sword and a spear sheath on his back. He was sitting cross-legged on top of a mountain. Last night, he had arrived outside Iron Dragon City early in the morning. However, he had purposely waited on top of this mountain until now. Phew, as the cold wind blew, Ting Qingshan opened his eyes and looked up at the sky. He could barely see the outline of the sun through the clouds. It's getting late. It's about time to go to the barracks. Ting Qingshan stood up and used his qin gong to rush towards the barracks. Tailong City was a small city in Jiaoye County, one of the 18 counties of Qingzhou. In Qingzhou, Xiao Yao Palace controlled a total of 15 counties. The other 3 counties were controlled by various gangs and sects. Jiaoye County was one of the 3 counties that were in chaos. What a huge barracks! Ting Qingshan felt the dense aura of life in the barracks and smiled. Little June is over there. He had already found Little June's aura. Little June's aura was not far from the aura of the godly thunderbolt hawk. Whoosh! Whoosh! Ting Qingshan snuck into the barracks like a ghost and headed towards Li Jun's residence. Why did the High Priestess summon us so urgently? 3 men dressed in black robes with golden edges were walking in the army camp. 2 of them had white hair, while the third one was younger, but there were a few strands of silver hair on his temples. Look, the second saintess is here too. The middle-aged man dressed in black pointed ahead with a smile. The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division is here too. The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division is quite capable. I often see him with the second saintess. The 3 black-cloaked men chatted and laughed as they followed the second saintess and the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division into the residence of the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus Cult. In the main hall of the residence of the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus Cult, the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus Cult sat on the main seat. A huge godly hawk was lying beside her throne. The 3 black-robed men were well aware of the status of the godly thunderbolt hawk. Greetings, sect leader. The 3 black-robed men saluted respectfully. 3 elders, please take a seat. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus Cult sat on the seat of honor. With a smile, she pointed at the seats on the right. When the 3 black-robed men saw the people in the hall, they couldn't help but be shocked. Goddess! There were already 4 people seated on the left side of the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus Cult. From the top to the bottom, they were the mysterious young man, the goddess Li Jun, the second saintess Murongyan, and the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, Lu Lilong. They were shocked to see the goddess, Li Jun, but what was even more shocking was, who was qualified to sit above the goddess? Who was this mysterious young man? The 3 black-robed men were shocked. However, they still obediently sat down on the seats on the right. Let me introduce. The High Priestess pointed at Ting Qingshan and said with a smile, "This is foreign dignitary Huha, one of the 3 foreign dignitaries of the Heavenly God Palace." Foreign dignitary? The 3 elders, the second saintess, the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, and the others, who had been confused, were all shocked. As members of the Heavenly God Palace, they knew how powerful the Heavenly God Palace was. They were very proud of being a member of the Heavenly God Palace. The Heavenly God Palace was a powerful force. Anyone who could be invited as a foreign dignitary was not an ordinary person. The status of a foreign dignitary was only second to the God of Heaven. So it's foreign dignitary Hua. I have long heard of foreign dignitary Hua. The second saintess, Murongyan, immediately said with a smile, "Back in the Great Prairie, the story of foreign dignitary Hua single-handedly fighting against an army of 100,000 has long been spread. I have always wanted to meet foreign dignitary Hua. I didn't expect to meet him today." Ting Qingshan nodded with a faint smile. At the same time, he observed his wife's second senior martial sister. Although Ting Qingshan knew that Murongyan was over 80 years old, her appearance was like that of a beautiful married woman. Her charm was astonishing, and her temperament was similar to that of the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult. After Murong Yen reached the innate realm, she must have cultivated a top-notch secret technique. I reckon that she cultivated the same secret technique as the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult. That's why her temperament is so similar. Greetings, Lord Huha. Foreign dignitary Huha. The others present cupped their hands and introduced themselves. Ting Qingshan nodded with a smile. Foreign dignitary Huha is not only a foreign dignitary. Moreover, he married little June not long ago, the high priestess said with a smile. Married. However, the second saintess, the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, and the others obviously didn't know this. They were all astonished. My junior martial sister is a great beast-taming grandmaster. Why is she married to foreign dignitary Huha? Not only was the second saintess puzzled, but the others present were also puzzled. Today, I called all of you here to give you an order. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult said solemnly, the heavenly god palace is about to mobilize our army. The Red Fiery Division and the Azure Dragon Division have a total of 200,000 soldiers. From today onwards, my disciple Li Jun will be the commander-in-chief. Foreign dignitary Huha will temporarily be the vice-commander-in-chief. Upon hearing this order, the facial expressions of the second saintess and the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division changed. High Priestess, the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division said respectfully, Her Highness the Goddess is still young. I'm afraid that it will be difficult for her to convince the masses. Humph. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult snorted coldly, scaring the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult glanced coldly at the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division and the others. What do you mean by difficult to convince the masses? Masses? It's just the few of you. I have already given the order. I want you to assist Li Jun with all your strength. If you cause trouble, you should know the rules of the Heavenly God Palace. The few present no longer dared to resist. All right, you may all leave. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult stood up and said, I'll leave the matters here to little June. I still have something important to do. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult rode on the godly Thunderbolt Hawk and left the barracks to Li Jun and Ting Qingshan. Currently, only the 100,000 soldiers of the Red Fiery Division were in the barrack. As for the 100,000 soldiers of the Azure Dragon Division, they were still on their way. Inside the room, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were both in the room. Qingshan, teacher has left. I'm worried that we won't be able to control them. Li Jun said worriedly, my second senior martial sister is very capable. I don't have any trusted subordinates in the barrack to control the Red Fiery Division and the Azure Dragon Division. Don't worry. Leave it to me. Ting Qingshan said with a smile. Ting Qingshan's ears twitched. As an emptiness realm expert, he could not only transmit sound with the use of the sound transmission technique, but he could also hear sounds within the domain. Little June, your second senior martial sister is indeed making a move. Ting Qingshan said with a smile, stay here. I'm going out for a while. Although it was daytime in the mansion of the second saintess, Murong Yen, the door to the main hall was closed. Only the faint light from the window shone in, making the main hall appear very dim. At this moment, the second saintess, Murong Yen, the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, and the three elders were all here. Humph, how old is that little girl Li Jun? The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division snorted angrily. She's not even 20 years old. How dare the High Priestess allow her to lead an army of 200,000? In my opinion, under the control of this little girl, I'm afraid that many of our two divisions' 200,000 soldiers will die. Superintendent Liu, the chubby white-haired elder said with a smile, even so, the High Priestess has given us an order. Teacher dotes on junior martial sister. Murong Yen shook her head and sighed. Actually, it's one thing to dote on him, but this is an important matter. Moreover, how can we treat the fate of 200,000 soldiers as a game? As she spoke, Murong Yen looked at the three elders, but the three elders still didn't say anything. Murong Yen frowned and said, "Three elders, second saintess." The slightly younger middle-aged elder said with a smile, "We only know one thing. The commander is Her Highness the Goddess. We don't care about anything else. The three of us don't have the authority to manage the army, and we are too lazy to manage it." When the second saintess heard this, she laughed. Who would manage the army? It was the flag supervisor. The reason why she invited the three elders over was to tell them not to meddle in other people's business. But now, it seemed like the three elders were turning a blind eye to it. The words "can't be bothered" had completely expressed the three of them's intentions. "I, Murong Yen, will stay here. Thank you." Murong Yen smiled and stood up. "Second saintess, we have known each other for several decades." The thin white-haired elder's aged voice sounded. "To be honest, the great saintess is too old. When the high priestess abdicates, the second saintess should be the one to succeed. However, this time, the high priestess is supporting the goddess. You have to be careful. Don't fall into the hands of this little girl." Among the 5 people present, Murong Yen was the youngest. She was already over 80 years old. It was normal to call Li Jun a little girl. "Elder He, I understand." Murong Yen smiled and said, "My junior martial sister is only 17 years old. She has never led an army before. What does she know? When the time comes, we will embarrass her and let everyone know that my junior martial sister is just a pretty face. She knows nothing about leading an army or managing people. At that time, even if my teacher supports her, he won't be able to go against the wishes of the hundreds of thousands of disciples." The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, who was at the side, also smiled and said, "Yes. We just need to play some tricks, and she will embarrass herself. There is no other reason. She will pretend to be obedient but oppose in private." Everyone present burst into laughter. How could it be so easy for a little girl to manage an army of 200,000 without any trusted subordinates? Suddenly, phew, the main door of the hall suddenly turned into powder and flowed down. "Who?" The facial expressions of the 5 people in the hall changed drastically. The 5 of them were the higher-ups of the Snowy Lotus cult and were all innate experts. However, they didn't even notice that the door had been broken in. Pretending to be obedient but opposing in private? With a sneer, a young man wearing a dark green cloak walked in. Foreign dignitary Huha? The 5 people present were stunned. They all knew that Huha and Li Jun were husband and wife. They were discussing how to deal with Li Jun, but now, her husband had come to their door. "Foreign dignitary Huha, what are you doing?" Murong Yen smiled and greeted him. "Listen up, the 5 of you." Ting Qingshan glanced at the 5 people with a cold gaze and said, "I have already seen through your evil intentions. I heard it clearly just now." When Ting Qingshan said this, the facial expressions of Murong Yen and the other 4 people turned cold. So what if she heard it? Would the high priestess believe Huha's words? Of course, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult might not believe me. Ting Qingshan smiled calmly and said, "However, I don't care if she believes me or not. I just want to say one thing. If you don't want to die, then be obedient." Chapter 448. Be good if you don't want to die. This lofty reprimand caused the 5 people present to be enraged. The 5 of them were the absolute higher-ups of the Snowy Lotus cult. Usually, only the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult would dare to reprimand them in such a manner. This foreign dignitary Huha was just an outsider, yet he still dared to speak to them in such a manner. "Who?" The 3 elders stood shoulder to shoulder and glared angrily at Ting Qingshan. A cold glint flashed across the rat-like eyes of the slightly plump elder as he said coldly, "Foreign dignitary Huha, you are the foreign dignitary of the Heavenly God Palace. We respect you by calling you foreign dignitary, but you, no matter what you say, you are still a foreign dignitary, an outsider. How dare you threaten us? The second saintess and the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division also stared at Ting Qingshan. At this moment, the five of them had a common enemy. So what if I threaten you? Ting Qingshan smiled indifferently. He stretched out his finger from left to right and pointed at the five people, just the five of you. I can kill you with a flip of my hand. I came here today just to give you a piece of advice. There's no door to hell, so don't try to barge in. Ting Qingshan's arrogant tone enraged the five people present. The five of them were all inborn experts. This time, the decisive battle between the Heavenly God Palace and Xiao Yao Palace was about to take place. The 200,000 soldiers of the Red Fiery Flag and the Azure Dragon Flag were part of the Southern Army. The three elders were specially dispatched by the Snowy Lotus cult to deal with the innate experts of Xiao Yao Palace. Among the three elders, 2 were Golden Dan innate experts and 1 was True Dan innate experts. The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, Lu Lilong, was also a Golden Dan innate expert. Although the second saintess, Morong Yen, had stepped into the innate realm for several decades, she was only at the true core innate realm. However, among the 5 of them, there were 3 Golden Dan innate experts and 2 True Dan innate experts. Hoo-ha! Lu Lilong, the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, glared at Duan Ling Tian like an enraged lion as he shouted, "This is the military camp of the Snowy Lotus cult. We respect you as a foreign dignitary, but don't be presumptuous. Humph! We might not be able to defeat you one-on-one, but we have 3 Golden Dan innate experts. You? Tisk tsk. Ting Qingshan interrupted the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division and said with a faint smile, 3 Golden Dan innate experts? So what if we have 5 Golden Dan innate experts? Foreign dignitary Hoo-ha, we have long heard of your great name. We really want to see how powerful you are." An old voice sounded. Immediately, the fat and skinny elders' bodies flashed almost at the same time, turning into 2 afterimages and pouncing towards Ting Qingshan. The fat elder's weapon was a blood-red scimitar, while the skinny elder's weapon was an iron rod. One was a long weapon, while the other was a short weapon. When the 2 Golden Dan innate elders worked together, it was almost perfect. The fat elder brandished his blood-red scimitar and spun like a spinning top to attack Ting Qingshan. Puff, the skinny elder's iron rod carried a wisp of green cold light as it smashed towards Ting Qingshan. Humph! Ting Qingshan smiled indifferently. His figure blurred as he performed the swimming Pisces body technique. Clang! The sharp sword on Ting Qingshan's back was unsheathed. This sharp sword was prepared by Ting Qingshan to disguise his identity. Since he was going to disguise himself as foreign dignitary Hoo-ha, Ting Qingshan decided not to use spear arts. When he defeated the first godly general, Borolimu, he used rod arts. Ting Qingshan could explain this with one sentence. He was skilled in both the rod and the sword. In the spacious hall, 7 afterimages of Ting Qingshan instantly appeared. Clang! Clang! Xiao! Xiao! Ting Qingshan only thrust his sword 4 times. He used the 49 Azure Lotus swords that he comprehended from the Azure Lotus sword song. When Ting Qingshan performed this sword art, especially with the help of the swimming Pisces body technique, this sword art had reached a dreamlike state. Moreover, it was as fast as lightning. Ha ha! Ting Qingshan laughed loudly. 2 sword shadows struck the chests of the 2 elders one after the other. Humph! The 2 Golden Dan innate elders let out a muffled groan as their bodies involuntarily flew away and crashed into the luxurious chairs. The chairs were smashed into pieces, and even the paintings hanging on the wall were smashed into pieces. The walls of the hall shook slightly, and a few cracks were left on them. After the fat and skinny white-haired elders fell to the ground, they hastily flipped over and stood up. Traces of blood could be seen on the corners of their mouth. However, their faces were filled with shock and anger as they stared at Ting Qingshan. How could he be so fast? How could he? The fat and skinny elders could be ranked among the top 5 in the Snowy Lotus cult. They didn't expect that when the two powerful experts joined forces, Ting Qingshan would only need 4 sword strikes to defeat them. He knocked away my scimitar with 1 sword strike and sent me flying with another? The fat elder stared at the scimitar in his hand as his body trembled. This hoo-ha! Murong Yen and the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, Lu Lilong, were astonished. They were completely stunned. Even if this foreign dignitary hoo-ha is stronger than the first godly general Boralimu, Elder He and the other 2 are also Golden Dan innate experts. Could it be that this hoo-ha is the same as the King of Beasts, who was ranked first in the heavenly ranking? The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division was astonished. The King of Beasts was ranked first in the heavenly ranking. If the King of Beasts Wu Ho wanted to kill a Golden Dan innate expert, even if 3 Golden Dan innate experts joined forces, the King of Beasts could still easily kill him. This was the strength of the person ranked first in the heavenly ranking. However, the person ranked first in the heavenly ranking was no longer the King of Beasts. The name of the King of Beasts had disappeared from the heavenly ranking. Some people said that the King of Beasts was dead, while others said that the King of Beasts had reached the emptiness realm. To kill you, even if you have 3 Golden Dan innate experts, it would be as easy as flipping my hand. Ting Qingshan glanced at the 5 people who were trembling in fear. Foreign dignitary hoo-ha, we are in the wrong this time. Murong Yen saw that the situation wasn't good and hastily said with a smile, actually, you don't need to worry. This is an unprecedented event of the Heavenly God Palace. No matter how daring we are, we won't dare to act wreck. Don't worry. We will definitely follow teacher's orders and listen to junior martial sister's orders. Among the 5 people present, which one of them wasn't a shrewd person? Even the youngest among them, Murong Yen, was over 80 years old. Who didn't understand the logic of temporarily lowering their heads. How would this hoo-ha know how to lead an army? He won't be able to find any evidence against us if we play dirty tricks in the dark. Murong Yen thought to herself. Foreign dignitary hoo-ha, this time we, foreign dignitary hoo-ha, please forgive us. The other people also lowered their heads towards Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan smiled coldly. You may speak nicely, but I don't know what you are thinking in your hearts. However, I don't want to know. I just want to warn you. Little June is my wife. If any problems occur while she is leading the army of 200,000 soldiers, don't blame me for being merciless. The rules of the Snowy Lotus cult have nothing to do with me. If any mistakes occur, I will definitely take your lives, Ting Qingshan said coldly. The facial expressions of the 5 people present changed. Foreign dignitary hoo-ha, aren't your words too serious? The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division couldn't help but frown as he said, it's inevitable for a small problem to occur in an army of 200,000 soldiers. What you said is true. Moreover, even if Li Jun is the commander-in-chief, she doesn't have the right to decide our lives. The 5 of them held high positions, so Li Jun didn't have the right to sentence them to death. Ting Qingshan glanced at the 5 people and said, I am not a member of the Heavenly God Palace. Don't talk about those *T rules. Be careful when you sleep at night. Now that you are the enemy of Xiao Yao Palace, it is normal for Xiao Yao Palace to send people to assassinate you. With this, Ting Qingshan turned and walked out. Hoo-ha, what do you mean by this? The fat elder couldn't help but shout. Humph. Ting Qingshan turned his head and glanced at the 5 people as he said, I am not stupid enough to kill you in public. If I wanted to kill you, it would be very easy. You. The 5 people were so angry that they didn't know what to say. If Ting Qingshan wanted to assassinate them, how could they escape? You are the foreign dignitary of the heavenly god palace. How could you do such a thing? The skinny elder said angrily. Listen carefully. Ting Qingshan grinned and said softly to the 5 people in front of him, I am not a good person. With this, Ting Qingshan left openly. The 5 higher-ups of the Snowy Lotus cult, who were in the damaged hall, were so angry that their facial expressions turned ugly. However, none of them dared to ask Ting Qingshan to stop. Everyone, what should we do now? The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division looked at the other 4 people. What else can we do? Under Murong Yan's willowy eyebrows, a cold glint flashed in her eyes as she said, We can only endure. Huha is not a merciful person. Don't forget, he has another name, Demon Arata. The other 4 people trembled when they heard this. That's right. The person who was called Demon Arata was a demon-like person who could fight against an army of 100,000. Was he a merciful person? Let's not play any tricks. Otherwise, we might not be able to see the sun when we sleep at night. After being threatened by Ting Qingshan, the 5 higher-ups of the Red Fiery Division were intimidated by Ting Qingshan's reputation and strength. Therefore, they didn't dare to play any more tricks. On the 3rd day after Ting Qingshan and Li Jun took control of the army of the Red Fiery Division, the army of 100,000 of the Azure Dragon Division's soldiers arrived. The entire barracks became much more crowded. Ting Qingshan and the others were quietly waiting for the order from the headquarters of the Heavenly God Palace. On the 16th of October, the leaves of the trees withered and turned yellow. In the Great Hall, it's finally starting. Ting Qingshan held a secret letter in his hand while Li Jun stood beside him. This secret letter had just been sent by the Heavenly God Palace. The Heavenly God Palace has begun to move. The world of the land of the 9 prefectures has finally begun to change. Ting Qingshan couldn't help but feel his blood boil. Clang! The door of the courtyard opened in the distance, and the sound of footsteps rang out. Tap, tap, tap. The 3 elders, the superintendents of the Red Fiery Division, the Azure Dragon Division, and the 2nd Saintess hurried over. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun sat on the left and right of the superintendents. Greetings, Commander-in-Chief and Deputy Commander-in-Chief. The 6 of them bowed. Phew! Li Jun stood up. Her gaze was sharp as she spoke in a clear voice. The Sovereign has personally given the order for our army of 200,000 to set off immediately. We must conquer Chunfan County and Muyang County before December. The superintendents of the Red Fiery Division, the Azure Dragon Division, and the others were shocked. However, since it was the Sovereign's order, no one dared to object. Time is of the essence. It will take a lot of time for an army of 200,000 to travel. We must hurry. Li Jun said coldly and solemnly, Today, we will have lunch 2 hours earlier. After eating, we will rest for 1 hour. Then, we will immediately set off for Chunfan County. Yes, Commander-in-Chief. The 6 of them replied in unison. Ting Qingshan stood beside Li Jun. When he heard this order, his gaze became distant. It was as if he could see the land of the 9 prefectures in turmoil and a bloody scene. The war had begun. P.S. Chapter 1. Chapter 449. Of the 9 prefectures in the world, Qingzhou had the highest population. Now, a terrifying force suddenly appeared in the land of Qingzhou. It was as if a monstrous wave was about to destroy Xiao Yao Palace. At first, only the super sects in the world knew about this. However, as the 3 armies of the mysterious force attacked simultaneously, the entire Qingzhou knew about this mysterious force. This mysterious force was called the Heavenly God Palace. For a moment, the entire land of the 9 prefectures was talking about this Heavenly God Palace that suddenly appeared. This Heavenly God Palace dared to challenge Xiao Yao Palace, one of the 8 supreme sections. Why wasn't there any news about it? It was too mysterious. However, most people in the world believed that Xiao Yao Palace would definitely win. The 8 supreme sects in the land of the 9 prefectures had existed for over 1,000 years and were deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Chunfan County, a county in the south-central part of Qingzhou. Currently, the entire Chunnan County city was in a mess. Corpses could be seen everywhere. There were burnt corpses at the foot of the city wall, the cracked city gate, and dried blood stains on the city wall. All of this meant that an extremely tragic battle had just taken place in Chunfan County City. So weak. The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division stood on the city wall and couldn't help but laugh. Standing on the city wall were the superintendent of the Azure Dragon Division, the second Saintess, the 3 elders, and Ting Qingshan and Li Jun. In the entire Chunfan County City, there is only one innate expert. Moreover, he is only a true Dan innate expert. The superintendent of the Azure Dragon Division stroked his beard and laughed. With so many of us working together and foreign dignitary Huha, it will be easy to break into Chunfan County City. Yes. However, there is no need for foreign dignitary Huha to attack Chunfan County City. The 3 elders smiled. The second Saintess also pretended to smile. Seeing this, Ting Qingshan smiled. Ever since the 3 elders, the second Saintess, and the others were threatened by him, they became very obedient and didn't dare to put on airs in front of him anymore. The second Saintess and the others knew that Ting Qingshan wouldn't reason with them. Moreover, Ting Qingshan wasn't a member of the Heavenly God Palace. Who would dare to offend Ting Qingshan? Was he tired of living? Although our speed is fast and we can conquer it in one battle, today is already the 28th of the 10th month. Li Jun said seriously, according to the sovereign's order, we must conquer Muyang County before the 12th month. We will rest in Chunfan County City for 3 days. 3 days later, we will depart for Muyang County. As a commander-in-chief, Li Jun indeed had a demeanor. Because she was young and weak, the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division and the others were not convinced. However, there was a terrifying man beside Li Jun. Huha! Ting Qingshan only needed to glance at them, and they would smile back at him. Naturally, no one dared to disobey Li Jun's orders. Commander, the leader of the Azure Dragon Division frowned deeply. We conquered Chunfan Prefectural City in one battle. Although we have the advantage of Khanate experts, it is obvious that the army in Chunfan Prefectural City is not that strong. According to the intelligence, each of the 15 counties under the control of Xiao Yao Palace has an elite army, the Black Scale Army. But just now, the Black Scale Army didn't appear at all. The elite armies of the super sects were also divided into different ranks. For example, the Silver Dragon Army of Qinghu Island was an elite army. The Golden Scale Guards were the elites of the elite. The Black Scale Army was the most elite army of the 15 counties under the control of Xiao Yao Palace. Yes, we didn't see the Black Scale Guards. The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division frowned and asked, "What is Xiao Yao Palace trying to do? Are they avoiding us and gathering their elite army to fight a decisive battle with us?" "Yes, it is very possible," the plump elder muttered. Li Jun turned to look at Ting Qingshan and asked, "Big brother Hua, what do you think? We will deal with soldiers with arms and water with earth." Ting Qingshan smiled and said, "Why worry? With the many scouts of the Heavenly God Palace, if Xiao Yao Palace really wants to gather an army somewhere, they will definitely find out. If we really can't solve it, we will just inform the Heavenly God Palace." The others nodded. No matter what, they were just a branch of the Snowy Lotus cult under the Heavenly God Palace. After resting and reorganizing for 3 days, Chunfan County was reorganized. Ting Qingshan, Li Jun, and the others led the great army and incorporated 30,000 soldiers, causing the total number of soldiers in the great army to reach 220,000. The mighty army of 220,000 left Chunfan County on the first day of November and headed towards Muyang County. The speed of the army of 220,000 was too slow. On the 7th day of the journey, A long snaking line was moving forward on the official road. Although there were many soldiers riding on war horses, there were still many of them. Although there were many soldiers riding on war horses, the army was too big and there weren't enough horses. Therefore, more than half of the soldiers were infantrymen. The sun was setting. The long dragon formed by the army extended to the ends of the heavens and the earth. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were both riding on dark demonic horses. They were in the center of the army, moving slowly. Report. A scout rode a horse and rushed over. Ting Qingshan raised his eyebrows. The scout hastily leaped down from his warhorse and respectfully presented a rolled-up piece of paper. Reporting to the commander-in-chief. This is the news sent by the scout at the front. Li Jun took the paper and read it. She was shocked and handed it to Ting Qingshan, who was beside her. As expected. As Ting Qingshan read the secret letter, his facial expression changed slightly as he thought to himself, Xiao Yao Palace is indeed unwilling to be destroyed. However, Xiao Yao Palace is indeed courageous and decisive. They didn't even defend their cities firmly. It seems like they want to share Qingzhou with the Heavenly God Palace. While Ting Qingshan was reading the letter, Li Jun ordered her subordinates to invite the 3 elders and a group of people over. Commander-in-chief. The 3 elders, the 2 flag sovereigns, and the second saintess approached. The situation is bad. Li Jun bit her lips. It's just as I had guessed. The reason why Xiao Yao Palace gave up Chunfan County so easily was because they had indeed gathered their elite troops at the 9-ringed mountain. They wanted to completely block our army at the east side of the 9-ringed mountain and prevent us from advancing to the west. 9-ringed mountain? The 3 elders and the other 5 were shocked. Oh no. The facial expression of the superintendent of the Azure Dragon Division changed drastically. The 9-ringed mountain is the only way for us to advance to the west. The official road is more than 10 li inside the 9-ringed mountain. The official road is crooked and can only accommodate 3 warhorses abreast. Both sides of the official road are cliffs. If they use the advantage of the 9-ringed mountain to defend and fight to the death, we will be in trouble. When Ting Qingshan heard this, he was shocked. Both sides of the official road are cliffs? More than 10 li? The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division said in a deep voice, If we enter the 9-ringed mountain, the official road will be crooked. We won't be able to take care of both the front and the back, and we won't be able to send orders to the entire army. No wonder they only sent the elite black-scale army. In such a dangerous environment like the 9-ringed mountain, ordinary soldiers can't cross the mountains and climb the cliffs. However, these elite soldiers are like tigers and wolves entering the forest. They can attack our army as they please in the 9-ringed mountain. For a moment, the few of them couldn't think of any good ideas. After all, the official road of the 9-ringed mountain was the only way. It would be great if there were emptiness realm experts, the plump elder said. If there were emptiness realm experts, they would be able to behead the leaders of the opposing army. By then, the enemy would be in chaos. As members of the Heavenly God Palace, they all knew how powerful an emptiness realm expert was. Li Jun turned to look at Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan smiled and said, The Heavenly God Palace will know about this soon. There is no need to worry. Above the white clouds in the boundless sky, a loud and sonorous screech sounded. A huge godly thunderbolt hawk spread its wings and flew. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, dressed in a light blue cloak, sat cross-legged on the back of the hawk. Aside from the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, who was riding on the godly thunderbolt hawk, there were 2 other men who were flying in the air. One of them was dressed in a long black cloak, and had long black hair that looked like arrows. He carried a black godly sword on his back. Only his eyebrows were white. This black-cloaked, white-browed man carried the godly sword on his back and flew side by side with the godly eagle that the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult was riding. In front of the two of them was an ordinary-looking man dressed in simple black trousers and a gray cloak. This man had fair skin and was slightly plump, making him easy to get close to. This man was Pei San. Teacher, the black-cloaked, white-haired man said respectfully, Xiao Yao Palace has already sent a large number of elite soldiers and innate experts to the Nine-Ringed Mountain, the Iron Feather Gorge, and the Liushou City. These three places are the most dangerous places, especially the Nine-Ringed Mountain. The official road is more than 10 li long. It seems that Xiao Yao Palace wants to defend these three places. They want to defend the 8 counties. Father. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, who was sitting on the godly Thunderbolt Hawk, shouted, Xiao Yao Palace still wants to defend? Especially the sovereign of Xiao Yao Palace. He escaped without even fighting. He is not in Xiao Yao Palace at all. We came here for nothing. Just thinking about it makes me angry. However, if that old man wants to defend the 8 counties, we cannot let him do as he wishes. Father, it shouldn't be difficult to break through the 3 places, right? Pei San flew in the sky and said with a faint smile, Don't look down on the old man of Xiao Yao Palace. Escape? He is smart. It seems that it won't be easy to get rid of Xiao Yao Palace. Ah Chao, Pei San said. Teacher, the black-cloaked, white-browed man replied respectfully. Among the 3 places, the Nine-Ringed Mountain is the most dangerous. If we fight it head-on, the 200,000 soldiers will be wiped out. Pei San said with a faint smile, Ah Chao, you will lead the 200,000 soldiers and break through the Nine-Ringed Mountain. Yes, teacher, the black-cloaked, white-browed man replied respectfully. Eldest martial brother, sorry to trouble you. I asked you to make a trip for my troops, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult said with a smile. The corners of the black-cloaked, white-browed man's mouth curled up, revealing a helpless and bitter smile. He couldn't do anything to this junior martial sister. After all, this junior martial sister was his teacher's only relative. Therefore, in front of the junior martial sister, not only the eldest martial brother, but also the others. When Pei San saw this, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ah Chao, you can set off now, Pei San instructed with a smile. Yes. The black-cloaked, white-browed man bowed. Ignoring the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult's snickering, he transformed into a blurry streak of sword light and flew towards the south. Soon, he disappeared into the clouds in the distance. P.S. 2 chapters completed. Chapter 450. November was very cold, but all the warriors of the 9 states felt their blood boiling with excitement. Millions of lightning bolts descended, turning the entire Xiao Yao Palace into ruins. This heavenly god palace is too powerful. Among the 8 supreme sects in the world, Xiao Yao Palace is going to be removed from the list. The heavenly god palace should replace it. In the land of the 9 prefectures, similar sighs could be heard in the restaurants of many county cities. The emptiness realm experts of the heavenly god palace wanted to kill the sovereign of the Xiao Yao Palace. Unfortunately, the sovereign of the Xiao Yao Palace didn't even fight. He just slipped away. The emptiness realm expert of the heavenly god palace was furious and unwilling to accept this outcome. Thus, the emptiness realm expert of the heavenly god palace struck down thousands of thunderbolts and destroyed Xiao Yao Palace. Of course, this was just a rumor among the people, and it was getting more and more exaggerated. In reality, it was only the godly lightning hawk that shot out a lot of thick lightning bolts from its wings. However, no matter what, the fact that Xiao Yao Palace fled without fighting and the destruction of Xiao Yao Palace meant one thing. Xiao Yao Palace, one of the 8 supreme sects in the land of the 9 prefectures, was finished. It could be said that the master of Qingzhou was no longer Xiao Yao Palace. Although Xiao Yao Palace still controlled many counties, if they didn't even want their sect's headquarters, how could Xiao Yao Palace fight against the heavenly god palace? Anyone with discerning eyes could see that Xiao Yao Palace was struggling at death's door. This scene caused many of the martial artists to exclaim in surprise and their blood to boil. Martial artists were people who loved to see the world in chaos. However, the other super sects in the land of the 9 prefectures were worried about the rise of the Heavenly God Palace, especially the strength of the Emptiness Realm expert that the Heavenly God Palace had revealed. This was especially true for Yozhou's Hongtian City, which was located at the north of Qingzhou, and Yangzhou's Qinghu Island, which was located at the south of Qingzhou. Both Qinghu Island and Hongtian City were worried that the Heavenly God Palace would send their armies north or south. Of course, to the west of Qingzhou was Emperor Yu's Hall. Everyone in the world believed that no matter how arrogant the Heavenly God Palace was, they wouldn't dare to provoke Emperor Yu's Hall, which had the longest history among the 8 supreme sects. Qingzhou, Jiangning County, Guiyuan Sect. In Zhuge Yuanhong's study room. I didn't expect that Xiao Yao Palace would flee without a fight. Elder Wu shook his head and sighed. The sovereign of Xiao Yao Palace was one of the strongest experts in the land of the 9 prefectures. It had long been rumored that he had attained Emptiness Realm culmination, but he didn't even care about the 1,000-year foundation of the sect. If 2 Emptiness Realm culmination experts were to fight, the commotion would definitely be huge. However, when the palace and mountain gate of Xiao Yao Palace were destroyed, there was no scene of super experts fighting against each other. Naturally, all the sects thought that Xiao Yao Palace master had fled without a fight. Zhuge Yuanhong frowned, as if he was worried about something. Martial ancestor, the fact that old palace master Xiao Yao escaped means that the Heavenly God Palace is too powerful, Zhuge Yuanhong said solemnly. Now, it seems that the Heavenly God Palace has at least one godly thunderbolt hawk. Secondly, the Heavenly God Palace definitely has more than one Emptiness Realm culmination expert. Actually, if it was just 2 Emptiness Realm culmination experts, the old sovereign Xiao Yao Palace wouldn't have fled without a fight. Elder Wu nodded. The headquarters of a sect was where its foundation was located. It was just like how Jiangning County was to the Guiyuan sect. Without Jiangning County, the Guiyuan sect would lose its foundation. Yes, if the Heavenly God Palace could resist, the old sovereign of Xiao Yao Palace wouldn't have abandoned the foundation of the sect. Elder Wu nodded. I am just worried about one thing, Zhuge Yuanhong frowned and said, the Heavenly God Palace is so powerful. However, we have never heard of it before. It is obvious that the Heavenly God Palace has hidden itself very well. If such a terrifying force could hide itself so well, then once it explodes it will be very terrifying. The Heavenly God Palace was able to scare the old sovereign of Xiao Yao Palace into fleeing without a fight. The strength of the Heavenly God Palace is probably 2 or even 3 times that of Xiao Yao Palace. They have hidden themselves for so long. Once they explode, they will definitely not be satisfied with just Qingzhou. Maybe they will attack Yangzhou. Zhuge Yuanhong squinted his eyes and a cold glint flashed. When Elder Wu heard this, he took a deep breath. Yuanhong, are you saying that this Heavenly God Palace will also occupy Yangzhou? Elder Wu was slightly shocked and angry. It's not strange. Zhuge Yuanhong said solemnly, in the past, when Hongtian City in Yuzhou was at its strongest, the king of the northeast led his armored cavalry and occupied half of the land of the 9 prefectures. The omnipotent experts, the heavenly emperor of the Qin Mountains and Emperor Yu, once unified the land of the 9 prefectures. Even the Buddhist sect, the Mani Temple, which doesn't like fighting, also occupied 2 prefectures. Zhuge Yuanhong sighed and said, as long as the Heavenly God Palace is powerful enough, it would be strange if they don't have ambition. Around Qingzhou, Hongtian City in Yuzhou is in the north, Qinghu Island in Yangzhou is in the south, and Emperor Yu's Hall in Yuzhou is in the west. The Heavenly God Palace will not be stupid enough to attack the oldest sect, Emperor Yu's Hall. As for Hong Tian City and Qing Hu Island, Hong Tian City is also the branch of the king of the northeast. Yuzhou in the northeast is also the most barbaric prefecture. It will be much more difficult to occupy Hong Tian City than Qing Hu Island. Qing Hu Island only has one blind sword master. He is on par with the old sovereign of Xiao Yao Palace. If they can destroy Xiao Yao Palace, they can also destroy Qing Hu Island. Zhuge Yuanhong smiled bitterly and said, "Of course, they will also destroy the Gui Yuan sect. When that happens, they will at least unify Qingzhou and Yangzhou. They might even use Yangzhou as a springboard to invade Yanzhou." Elder Wu's facial expression changed drastically. The strength of the Gui Yuan sect was far inferior to the Heavenly God Palace. "Is there no other way?" Elder Wu hastily asked. "It all depends on the old sovereign of Xiao Yao Palace." Zhuge Yuanhong's eyes flashed as he said, "If we destroy the foundation of the sect, the old sovereign and the Heavenly God Palace will definitely be irreconcilable. His existence will be a headache for the Heavenly God Palace. Secondly, the Gui Yuan sect has two emptiness realm experts, the martial ancestor and Qingshan. If the undying phoenix were to come again, at that time, the Heavenly God Palace wouldn't provoke 3 emptiness realm experts just for a county. They might even negotiate with us." Hearing this, Elder Wu nodded. As long as one was not a fool, he would definitely not offend 3 emptiness realm experts just for one county, especially when one of them was the undying phoenix. It's a pity that the undying phoenix did not come. Zhuge Yuanhong shook his head and said, "Plus, I don't want to expose the fact that Qingshan has reached the emptiness realm. We can only take it one step at a time. According to the information, the Xiao Yao Palace is preparing to defend the 3 counties. I hope they can delay the Heavenly God Palace for a little longer." Zhuge Yuanhong probably did not know that his proud disciple, Ting Qingshan, was now on the side of the Heavenly God Palace. The 9-ringed mountain occupied a vast area. Because it occupied a vast area, the official road could not go around this mountain range and could only be opened from within the mountain range. Outside the official road at the entrance of the 9-ringed mountain, the soldiers were densely packed like a forest. They lined up in an orderly manner, like the endless sea of darkness. An army of 220,000. What kind of concept was that? It could be called a sea of people. Ting Qingshan, his wife, the second saintess, the superintendents of the Red Fiery Division, the Azure Dragon Division, and the 3 elders gathered together and looked at the mountain pass of the 9-ringed mountain. "Haha, what's wrong with the people of the Heavenly God Palace? Are they afraid? What a bunch of cowards. I am right here. Come and kill me if you can." On the top of the 9-ringed mountain, figures could be seen cursing wantonly. Li Jun, the commander-in-chief, was being insulted in such a manner. Moreover, the soldiers who were cursing even used filthy words. This made Li Jun even angrier. "Little Jun," Ting Qingshan held Li Jun's hand. "Yes, I'm fine." Li Jun bit her lips and looked at Ting Qingshan as she whispered, "Do I not look like a commander-in-chief? You have done a good job." Ting Qingshan smiled as he comforted her. The people who were cursing as vile as possible. If Ting Qingshan was the commander-in-chief and was cursed like this, he would probably be furious as well. We have already found out that there are many soldiers in the 9-ringed mountain. The superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, Lu Lilong, looked at Ting Qingshan and Li Jun with a pair of fierce eyes. "Commander-in-chief, according to the investigation, there are about 30 to 40,000 elite soldiers in the innermost area. 30 to 40,000 soldiers are the elites of the Black Scale Army, not our ordinary soldiers." The Azure Dragon Division's superintendent stroked his beard and shook his head. "Even if we fight them head-on, the 30 to 40,000 Black Scale Army will be able to fight against our army until both sides suffer heavy losses. Have the geographical advantage? No matter how many people we have, we won't be able to win." Junior Marshal Sister, what do you think we should do? The second Saintess looked at Li Jun with a smile. The other three elders also looked at Ting Qingshan, and Li Jun. Ting Qingshan and his wife were the Commander-in-Chief and the Deputy Commander-in-Chief. Now, they naturally presented the problem to Ting Qingshan and Li Jun. Can't you do anything? Li Jun asked. The second Saintess, the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, and the others secretly sneered at Li Jun. What's the rush? Ting Qingshan glanced at the few people and said, The Heavenly God Palace has already established its power. Xiao Yao Palace is just struggling at death's door. What are you worried about? Ting Qingshan's words made the few people speechless. Foreign dignitary Huha, you seem to have a well-thought-out plan. You must have a plan, right? The second Saintess, Murong Yen, stared at Ting Qingshan. However, Ting Qingshan snorted coldly and was too lazy to care about these people. Murong Yen gnashed her teeth in anger at Li Jun's husband. Li Jun, this brat. She actually found this Huha to be her husband. Ting Qingshan suddenly raised his head and looked towards the north. The black-cloaked, white-browed man flew in the air and arrived above the nine-ringed mountain. Looking down at the mountain range, the black-cloaked, white-browed man's facial expression changed slightly. Emptiness Realm Expert. There is an Emptiness Realm Expert here. The black-cloaked, white-browed man could clearly sense an extremely powerful aura amidst the boundless aura of life on the ground below. It was like a huge ball of golden flames that was mixed with the aura of gold. Why is there an Emptiness Realm Expert here? There is only one Emptiness Realm Expert in Xiao Yao Palace. Could it be that there is a second one? The black-cloaked, white-browed man was absolutely certain. He had never sensed the aura of an Emptiness Realm Expert before. After attaining the Emptiness Realm, one would ascend to the heavens with a single step. One's spirit would become one with the heavens and the earth, and one's aura would change drastically. Although the black-cloaked, white-browed man had seen Ting Qingshan in the past, after Ting Qingshan attained the Emptiness Realm, he could not recognize Ting Qingshan, just like Elder Wu. This Emptiness Realm Expert is in our military camp. Whoosh! He transformed into a streak of sword gleam and shot downwards. The black-cloaked, white-browed man shot towards the location where Ting Qingshan and the others were. Almost instantly, the three elders, the superintendents of the Red Fiery Division, the Azure Dragon Division, and the second Saintess watched in shock as a streak of sword gleam landed in front of them. The streak of sword gleam transformed into a black-cloaked, white-browed, cold-looking man with a black godly sword on his back. Greetings, God of Heaven! The second Saintess, the three elders, and the others, including Li Jun, bowed respectfully. Foreign dignitary Huha. The second Saintess, Murong Yen, cast a glance at Ting Qingshan, who was still standing, and said in a low voice, This is the God of Heaven of the Heavenly God Palace. Why aren't you bowing? Even the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult wasn't qualified to be called the God of Heaven. Aside from the sovereign of the Heavenly God Palace, the gods of heaven had the highest status. Chapter 451. This Huha is always very arrogant. Let's see how arrogant you can be in front of the God of Heaven. The second Saintess, the superintendents of the Red Fiery Division, and the others were forced to listen to Ting Qingshan's orders and didn't dare to have any other thoughts. Now that the God of Heaven had arrived, they were naturally excited. This was the God of Heaven of the Heavenly God Palace. Even Huha had to bow and greet him. Oh, greetings, God of Heaven! Ting Qingshan smiled and cupped his hands. Just cupping his hands? Seeing this, the second Saintess, the three elders, and the others were astonished. This Huha is too arrogant. Does he think he is an Emptiness Realm Expert? This God of Heaven is very cautious. Ting Qingshan also noticed that when the black-cloaked, white-browed man arrived, he sealed off the surrounding area of several zhang. His voice was transmitted through vibrations. Although the people outside could see, they couldn't hear the conversation between the god of heaven, Ting Qingshan, Li Jun, and the others. Foreign dignitary Huha? The black-cloaked, white-browed man raised his eyebrows and scrutinized Ting Qingshan. A smile appeared on his face as he cupped his hands and said, as expected of the genius praised by the old monk, the genius who defeated Boralimu. It has only been 3 years. Foreign dignitary Huha, you have stepped into the emptiness realm. Congratulations! Compared to the god of heaven, I'm still far behind, Ting Qingshan said with a faint smile. Foreign dignitary Huha, you are quite modest. The black-cloaked, white-browed man and Ting Qingshan smiled politely as if they were old friends. The second saintess, the superintendents of the Red Fiery Division, the Azure Dragon Division, and the others were completely stunned. They stared blankly at the conversation between Ting Qingshan and the god of heaven. Even an idiot could tell that Ting Qingshan and the black-cloaked, white-browed god of heaven were conversing as equals, especially when the god of heaven congratulated him. Emptiness realm? The second saintess widened her eyes. Congratulations on attaining the emptiness realm? The 3 elders were dumbfounded. This Huha is an emptiness realm expert like the god of heaven? Suddenly, the second saintess, the 3 elders, the superintendent of the Red Fiery Division, and the others felt that they had been jumping around like monkeys in front of Ting Qingshan for the past month. They had been thinking that they were infallible and didn't know it. An emptiness realm expert. In the entire 9 prefectures, he was a lofty existence. For example, the Xiaoyao Palace only had an old palace lord who was an emptiness realm expert. Lord Huha! Lord Huha! The second saintess and the others hastily bowed, looking ashamed. Lord, please don't mind our disrespect. When the second saintess and the others thought about how they tried to plot against the wife of the emptiness realm expert, their hearts trembled. Brother Huha! The black-cloaked, white-browed man swept a glance at the others and said with a smile, "It seems that you have been concealing your strength." Just a small warning to them. In this way, they naturally wouldn't dare to have any disrespectful thoughts. From the words of the black-robed, white-browed man, it was obvious that he didn't think highly of Xiantian experts. Although the golden Dan of the innate realm and the emptiness realm only differed by 1 step, it was not strange. But it was the difference between the heavens and the earth. After attaining the emptiness realm, one would be able to control the power of the heavens and the earth, and his lifespan would also reach an astonishing 500 years. The emptiness realm experts were the pinnacle figures who could change the situation of the 9 prefectures. When it's time for them to know, they will naturally know. Ting Qingshan smiled. There's no need to show off your strength just for them. That's true. The black-robed, white-browed man smiled and nodded. Brother Huha, why don't we attack the 9-ringed mountain together? The black-robed, white-browed man invited. Ting Qingshan smiled and cupped his hands. Then I shall accept your invitation. The 2 emptiness realm experts looked at each other and smiled. Who? A streak of sword light and a streak of fiery red light shone at the same time. Ting Qingshan and the black-robed, white-browed man disappeared from the front of the army. So fast. The second saintess and the others looked into the distance in amazement. The speed of an emptiness realm expert was enough to make them envious. As expected of an emptiness realm expert, the second saintess, Murongyen, couldn't help but exclaim. Simultaneously, she glanced at Li Jun, who wore a proud expression. Junior Marshal sister is so lucky. No wonder she married Huha. If an emptiness realm expert was willing to marry me, I would have married him long ago. An emptiness realm expert. Commander-in-Chief, congratulations. We didn't expect Lord Huha to have attained emptiness realm. At this moment, the attitudes of the superintendents of the Red Fiery Division, the Azure Dragon Division, and the 3 elders were completely different. Seeing this, Li Jun's face naturally revealed a hint of joy. Before Second Martial Sister and the others knew that Qingshan was an emptiness realm expert, they still had some thoughts. But now it's completely different. Unless one was a fool, who would be willing to offend an emptiness realm expert? After a while, Lord, kill! Who? Furious roars came from the nine-ringed mountain. There are a total of 30,000 soldiers in the nine-ringed mountain and 3 innate experts. A cold voice resounded throughout the entire nine-ringed mountain. Now that the 3 innate experts have been executed, killing you will be as easy as cutting grass. I will give you 10 breaths of time. If you resist, I will kill all the leaders of the 12 troops. Xiao Yao Palace has already been destroyed. Why are you still so stubborn? Those who surrender, put down your weapons. Those who choose to resist, continue to raise your weapons. Die or live. Choose. The voice resounded in the nine-ringed mountain. On a mountain, Ting Qingshan stood on a pile of rocks and looked at the black-cloaked, white-browed man standing in midair. The black-cloaked man's entire body was actually glowing with a dense black sword glow. The black sword glow that filled the sky was like a huge black cloud that enveloped the black-cloaked, white-browed man. Ting Qingshan's ears twitched, and he heard the conversation from a few li away. You want us to choose to live or die? Ridiculous. Tens of thousands of us are scattered in the nine-ringed mountain. Kill us? Even if we die, it's just a big scar on our heads. What's there to be afraid of? Ting Qingshan revealed a smile and said, There are still troops that dare to resist? Suddenly, boom! A terrifying black sword radiance shot out from the sky into the distance like a sharp sword. This black sword radiance flew for several li in an instant, directly piercing a large hole in the body of the leader of one of the squads who had just been talking. It even affected the soldiers behind him. This sword radiance killed 9 people before dissipating. The large group of soldiers was completely stunned as they looked at their dead leader and the others in a daze. One of the 12 troop leaders is dead. Those who are not afraid of death, continue. The cold voice resounded in the sky again. You have 3 breaths of time. They were stunned. Separated by a distance of several li, the sword radiance flew so far and killed the enemy. Their morale was completely gone. They are not at the same level. Ting Qingshan shook his head and sighed. He heard the discussion of the 12 troops. Actually, the morale of those troops was at its lowest after the 3 innate experts were suddenly killed. The men of Xiao Yao Palace couldn't kill them even if they wanted to. However, their opponents could easily kill them. Clang! Clang! Ting Qingshan heard the sound of weapons hitting the ground. A troop surrendered. Ting Qingshan shook his head. One of the 12 troops surrendered. The leader of this troop will be the lord of a city. The white-browed man in the black cloak said indifferently. With the troop leading and the leader being conferred the title of the lord of a city. Immediately, the hesitant troop leaders immediately gave orders, and the number of troops that surrendered increased rapidly. In front of an emptiness realm expert, no matter how powerful an army was, it had to bow its head. Unless this army also had an emptiness realm expert. After all, even if they fought, the emptiness realm expert only needed to kill over 100 officers and the entire troop would collapse. The white-browed man in the black cloak threatened them with words. It was considered merciful. Under the leadership of an emptiness realm expert, the nine-ringed mountain was easily conquered. The army of the Heavenly God Palace easily conquered the 3 areas that Xiao Yao Palace guarded in Qingzhou. This was because 2 of the 3 armies had emptiness realm experts. Only one of the armies had no emptiness realm expert. The army on the northern side, the only one without an emptiness realm expert, had the most golden Dan innate experts. After breaking through the 3 guarded areas, the army of the Heavenly God Palace was like a hot knife through butter. Everywhere he passed, there was no one who did not open their doors to surrender. Even the palace of Xiao Yao Palace was destroyed, and even the higher-ups of Xiao Yao Palace had fled. How could they force the troops of the counties to die? Actually, when the mountain gate of Xiao Yao Palace was destroyed, these troops no longer had the will to fight. In just 2 short months, Qingzhou, which had the most population in the 9 prefectures, had a new ruler. On the 3rd day of December, the Heavenly God Palace announced to the world that the 18 counties of Qingzhou were now under the rule of the Heavenly God Palace. On the 1st day of the 12th month, the Wanxiang sect had published another book, which recorded the battle between the Heavenly God Palace and the Xiao Yao Palace in Qingzhou. At the same time, it also recorded a list of the 8 supreme sects: Mani Temple, Emperor Yu's Hall, Ing Family, Hong Tian City, Snow Hawk Hall, Heavenly God Palace, Qing Hu Island, and Shooting Sun God Mountain. From today onwards, Xiao Yao Palace, which had a history of over 1,000 years, was no more. The Heavenly God Palace became one of the 8 supreme sects. Qingzhou. Outside a pavilion built by the East Sea, Pei San was leisurely sitting on a bamboo chair, enjoying the sea breeze and reading a book. Meng Duan was peeling a fruit at the side, while the guard, Tai Ta, stood straight beside Pei San. Teacher! Teacher! Father! The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult, the black-cloaked, white-browed man, and the savage king of beasts, Wu Ho, walked over. You guys are here, Pei San said with a faint smile. He turned and glanced at the black-cloaked, white-browed man. Where is Hu-ha? I was ordered by teacher to invite foreign dignitary Sui over. However, foreign dignitary Sui said that he has important matters to attend to. When he has time in the future, he will definitely come and see teacher. The black-cloaked, white-browed man cupped his hands and said, Also, teacher, I invited him to join the Heavenly God Palace and even gave him the title of God of Heaven. However, he is still unwilling. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult humphed and said, Father, this Hu-ha is too arrogant. If he is unwilling to become a god of heaven, should we beg him? Humph, hee. Pei San smiled calmly and said, Little Lien, didn't you say that your disciple, Li Jun, has already reached the innate realm? Innate realm? The king of beasts, Wu Ho, was astonished. Little Jun has also reached the innate realm? She is only 18 this year, right? The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult revealed a proud expression. How about this? Pei San instructed. From today onwards, the other 2 saintesses of the snowy lotus cult will be promoted to the position of elder. Li Jun will be the only saintess of the snowy lotus cult. Little Lien, since you are too lazy to manage the snowy lotus cult, then let Li Jun manage the snowy lotus cult temporarily. Everyone present was taken aback. The other 2 saintesses would be promoted to the position of elder? Although it was said to be promoted, it actually meant that the other 2 saintesses were deprived of the opportunity to become the high priestess. In other words, Li Jun would definitely become the future high priestess of the snowy lotus cult. Yes, Father, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult answered happily. Hu-ha! Pei San muttered to himself as a smile appeared on his face. P.S. 2 chapters are completed. Tomato is late again. Tomato now owes everyone 8 chapters. It seems that the task of making up the chapters is very important. Chapter 452. Qingzhou, Huyue County City. Huyue County was originally the center of Qingzhou. The palace of Xiao Yao Palace was located outside of Huyue County City. However, ever since the palace of Xiao Yao Palace was destroyed and the entire mountain was struck by lightning, Huyue County's status among the 18 counties of Qingzhou had dropped. However, the headquarters of the Snowy Lotus cult had been relocated to Huyue County. The headquarters of the Snowy Lotus cult was located in the northern district of Huyue County City. It occupied a vast area. One should know that many mansions in the Huyue County City used to be the residences of the high-ranking members of Xiao Yao Palace. However, they were now occupied by the Snowy Lotus cult. All of you can leave. Little June and foreign dignitary Luo stay. Yes, master, sect leader. In the spacious hall, the great saintess and the second saintess of the Snowy Lotus cult retreated respectfully along with the 9 supreme elders. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were the only 2 people left. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult is really ruthless. She actually allowed the other 2 holy daughters to become elders. In this way, the other 2 holy daughters will have no hope of becoming the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. Now, little June will definitely become the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. Ting Qingshan glanced at the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. The high priestess's face was flushed. She was wearing a pink robe, which made her look even more beautiful. Based on her appearance, it was impossible to tell that she was over 100 years old. At this moment, the high priestess was looking at Ting Qingshan with a smile. Foreign dignitary Huha, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, said in a gentle voice, "Foreign dignitary, you have hidden yourself well. You have reached the emptiness realm, but you didn't tell us." Cult master didn't ask. Ting Qingshan smiled. "If I don't ask, you won't tell me?" The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult couldn't help but giggle. "Huha, my eldest senior martial brother invited you to join the Heavenly God Palace and even gave you the title of God of Heaven. Isn't this a great thing? Now that you have become the God of Heaven of the Heavenly God Palace, who in the entire 9 prefectures would dare to provoke you? If you want to establish a sect, you can totally establish a sect, just like how I established the Snowy Lotus cult." Ting Qingshan smiled and shook his head. What a blockhead! The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult wore a cold expression as she looked at Li Jun and said, "Little June, your man is a blockhead and a fool." Li Jun couldn't help but smile. Girls tend to leave their husbands. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult shook her head helplessly and instructed, "All right, you 2 can leave now." "Yes, teacher." Li Jun hastily bowed. "All right." The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult stared at Li Jun solemnly and said, "Little June, I have already said that from today onwards, you are the only saintess of the Snowy Lotus cult. When I'm not around, you will be in charge of the Snowy Lotus cult's affairs. So, little June, don't be lazy." "Yes, master." Li Jun could only respond. "Go," the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult instructed. Li Jun then left with Ting Qingshan. Before they left, Ting Qingshan merely nodded and smiled at the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. "This Huha is so boring." The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult narrowed her beautiful eyes and said, "However, your wife has become the future high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult of the Heavenly God Palace, and you are a foreign dignitary. Even if you don't join the Heavenly God Palace, what's the difference between joining and not joining?" Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were leisurely drinking tea and chatting in their residence. "Qingshan, the Heavenly God Palace is really generous. In order to rope you in, they even let my eldest martial sister and second martial sister become elders," Li Jun said as she ate some melon seeds. Ting Qingshan looked at Li Jun and said, "In their eyes, I don't belong to any sect. Of course, it's worth it to rope me in. However, little June, from today onwards, you are the substitute high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. You'll be much busier. I just can't leave with you, Qingshan." Li Jun was slightly distressed. "This matter will be resolved soon." Ting Qingshan reached out and held Li Jun's hand. "Yes." Li Jun nodded. "I'm preparing to leave tomorrow morning," Ting Qingshan said with a serious expression. "According to the intelligence, the Heavenly God Palace destroyed Xiao Yao Palace, causing more chaos in the world. In the land of the 9 prefectures, many super sects have begun to purge their territories. Seeing the destruction of Xiao Yao Palace, sects like Hong Tian City, Snowhawk Hall, and Qinghu Island were also worried that some sects would rebel within their territories. They couldn't give the small sects any room to develop. This was the common understanding of all the sections. Xiao Yao Palace only controlled 15 of the 18 counties and didn't care about the other 3 counties at all. Moreover, Xiao Yao Palace's management was very lax. This was why the Snowy Lotus cult developed an army of several 100,000 by relying on the 3 counties. Now, Hongtian City has already taken action. They want to destroy some of the small sects and the large bandit gangs in Yuzhou in the northeast. I'm worried that Qinghu Island will do the same. This was common sense. To the super sects, they had to settle their internal affairs before resisting foreign aggression. For example, Yangzhou's Qinghu Island only occupied 1 county. If the Heavenly God Palace invaded Yangzhou, they would probably reach an agreement with the Guiyuan sect, giving the Guiyuan sect a county and letting the Guiyuan sect act as a spy. The Guiyuan sect was located in the hinterland of Yangzhou. The Guiyuan sect was inside, and the Heavenly God Palace was outside. If they joined forces, Qinghu Island wouldn't be able to defend. The best way was to spend some effort to destroy the Guiyuan sect first. Then, they would unite Yangzhou and fight against the Heavenly God Palace. Therefore, I must give Qinghu Island a headache. Qinghu Island won't have the energy to deal with the Guiyuan sect, Ting Qingshan said solemnly. If the Heavenly God Palace didn't unite Qingzhou, Ting Qingshan wouldn't be in a hurry to deal with Qinghu Island. But now, he was in a hurry. Yes, I understand. Li Jun nodded. Little June, according to our previous plan, gather information about the people who have a grudge against Qinghu Island from the intelligence organization of the Snowy Lotus cult, Ting Qingshan instructed. On the morning of the 6th of December, Ting Qingshan left Huiyue County. On the afternoon of the same day, Ting Qingshan arrived at Yangzhou's Nanxing County. Dressed in a white cloak, Ting Qingshan looked like a handsome and noble young master. Master! When the guards at the entrance of the Li residence saw Ting Qingshan, they greeted him respectfully. Did anyone come to see me while I was away? Ting Qingshan asked. Master, a few days ago, someone from Jiangning County wanted to see you, a bearded guard said respectfully. He said he wanted to give you a letter. However, he waited for a long time, but you didn't come, so he left the letter and left. Ting Qingshan's heart thumped. Jiangning County? Maybe it was the Guiyuan sect. Master Yang Dong came back 6 days ago. The bearded guard said hastily. He stayed in the residence for a day and then left. Dong came back? Ting Qingshan's eyes brightened. After a while, the housekeeper respectfully handed the letter sent by the person from Jiangning County to Ting Qingshan. As he walked in the inner court, Ting Qingshan opened the letter and asked, A letter from Jiangning County? After opening the letter, there were only 4 words in the letter. Fiery guilt completed. Success? Ting Qingshan smiled. If an outsider received this letter, they wouldn't understand the meaning of the words, fiery guilt completed. After all, no one in the land of the 9 prefectures knew about the fiery guilt steel. The fiery guilt steel armor has been completed. With the speed of the Guiyuan sect's armor forging, the 3,000 sets of armor should be completed within a month. Ting Qingshan heaved a sigh of relief. With the fiery gilt steel armor, Qinghu Island won't be able to rely on human wave tactics even if they attack. The best way to deal with human wave tactics was to use elite tactics. I wonder what that kid Dong said in the letter. He left me after he returned. As he walked in the inner court, Ting Qingshan quickly entered the study. Back then, Ting Qingshan had instructed his 2 disciples to report to him every 2 or 3 months after they went to the Tai mountain range. If he wasn't around, they should leave a letter in the study under the papers. In the study, Ting Qingshan walked into the study and found a letter among the many pieces of xian paper on the study table. It's really here. The words on the letter were written in Duanmu Continent's handwriting, to Master, from disciple Yang Dong. Outsiders wouldn't be able to recognize this letter. Master, eldest martial brother and I have formed a gang of over 1,000 bandits in the Tai A mountain range. I named this gang Xiong Shou Gang. Every member of our Xiong Shou Gang is a hero. Looking at Yang Dong's boastful words, Ting Qingshan smiled. Yang Dong is good at being a bandit. Ting Qingshan smiled and said, Ah Shou actually agreed to the name Xiong Shou? Ting Shou and Yang Dong, the two martial brothers, were definitely suitable to become bandit. Ting Qingshan cultivated alone in the Li residence until the third day after he came back. Puchi. Xiu. With the reincarnation spear in his hand, Ting Qingshan practiced the moves of the spear art. For a moment, the spear was like lightning, and his body was like a swimming dragon. Every move contained the concept of Tao. It was as if a volcano was erupting, as if the heavens and the earth were being split apart by an axe, and as if a fireball that was as bright as the sun was smashing towards the ground. The six-legged blade-like Qi widened its eyes and stared at Ting Qingshan, who was practicing the fist art. Master, master! A clear voice came from afar. Ting Qingshan stopped in surprise. The six-legged blade-like Qi immediately widened its triangular eyes. It was very angry that Ting Qingshan stopped practicing. It was so angry that two thick breaths came out of its nostrils. They wouldn't dare to disturb me if there's nothing important. Ting Qingshan put down the reincarnation spear and walked to the entrance of the courtyard. Creak. A pretty maid with two braids stood at the entrance of the courtyard. She stared at Ting Qingshan with her big and clear eyes and said nervously, Old master, there's a letter. It's said to be from Madam. Ting Qingshan took the letter in surprise. Go. Ting Qingshan waved his hand. The maid cast a few glances at Ting Qingshan and left hastily like a frightened rabbit. She thought to herself, Our master is really handsome, just like what the sisters said. Ting Qingshan returned to the training field as he opened the letter. As expected, when he opened the letter there was a stack of paper inside. A smile appeared on Ting Qingshan's face. The letter wrote, The information of 9 people is recorded in this letter. These 9 people have an irreconcilable hatred with Qinghu Island. The first person is called Zhang Wei. The entire piece of paper was densely packed. It took a total of 12 pieces of paper to fill up the information of 9 people. Everyone in the list had an irreconcilable hatred with Qinghu Island. Which one should I help? Ting Qingshan thought to himself. Chapter 453. The 9 people on the list were people who dreamed of revenge. They wanted to eat the flesh and drink the blood of their enemies. Ting Qingshan looked at the 8th piece of paper and thought to himself, suspected to be related to my Guiyuan sect? The person described on the 8th piece of paper was called Shui Xian. He was from Wuan County of Yangzhou. The Shui clan was an ancient clan with a history of 200 to 300 years. However, in the generation of Shui Xian's father, Shui Qingdao, there were only 3 males in the Shui clan. They were Shui Xian's father, and second uncle. Shui Xian was the only heir of the Shui clan. Shui Xian lived a leisurely life during his childhood and adolescence. Influenced by his father, Shui Xian loved to read when he was young. In Wuan County City, Shui Xian was a famous scholar. However, when he was 16, Shui Xian's father, Shui Qingdao, obtained a treasure. It was said to be the poem section of the poetic sword god, Li Taibai, Drifting Cloud Invitation. Li Taibai was an omnipotent expert. Similarly, Li Taibai's status in the field of poetry and literature was supreme. One of his poems was definitely worth tens of thousands of gold coins. To people who loved poetry, this drifting cloud invitation was their lifeblood. This Shui Qingdao actually obtained the poem section of the poetic sword god, Li Taibai. Ting Qingshan praised in his heart. However, it's a pity that he suffered because of it. After Shui Qingdao obtained the drifting cloud invitation, he carefully treasured it. Unfortunately, his younger brother, Xue Qingqian, accidentally revealed the news of the drifting cloud invitation when he was drunk and proudly flaunted it to his friends. Because of this drunken leak, the nephew of the county chief of Wuan County City, Zhao Fu, who also loved poetry, was moved. On the same day, he went to the Xue clan and offered to buy the drifting cloud invitation at a high price. It would have been fine if the Xue clan had sold the drifting cloud invitation. However, Xue Qingdao treated the drifting cloud invitation as his lifeblood. How could he be willing to sell it? At that time, he tactfully rejected Zhao Fu and said that he didn't have the drifting cloud invitation and that it was purely his brother bragging after drinking. This Zhao Fu guy is really ruthless. Ting Qingshan looked at the few simple sentences on the paper and couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. 3 days later, the guards of Wuan County arrested the two brothers, Xue Qingdao and Xue Qingqian, and threw them into prison. The next day, they falsely accused the Xue clan of being the remaining members of Tai Yi Hall and executed all 18 members of the Xue clan, including the women. Only Xue Xian escaped. Looking at these lines of words, Ting Qingshan secretly sighed. In front of the hegemony of Qinghu Island, a wealthy family was nothing. He could kill all of them with the title of remaining evildoers of Tai Yi Hall. 3 months after the Xue family was executed, a major event that shocked the entire Wuan County took place. A major poisoning case had occurred in the prefectural governor's mansion of Wuan County. 87 people died in the prefectural governor's office, but Zhao Fu was not poisoned to death. The death of so many people enraged the county governor of Wuan County City. He immediately investigated. In the end, he found out that the culprit behind the poisoning this time was the weak young man, Xue Xian, who only knew how to write poems. Immediately, the entire territory of Yangzhou issued a warrant for the arrest of this young man named Xue Xian. However, Xue Xian concealed his identity and went into hiding, disappearing for 3 whole years. According to the investigation of the Snowy Snow cult, during these 3 years, it is suspected that this was related to the Gui Yuan sect. In the 8th month of this year, Xue Xian was invited by an escort agency to be an escort and returned to Wuan County City. Now, he was an escort of the Chongqing Escort Agency in Wuan County City. His fake name was Wu Yi. Ting Qingshan read the information about this person carefully. This Xue Xian was only a scholar before his family was destroyed? Ting Qingshan was slightly astonished. He first used poison to take revenge, and 3 years later, he became an escort? At the same time, Ting Qingshan was also astonished. The intelligence network of the Snowy Lotus cult was really powerful. They actually found out Xue Xian's current identity. Disappearing for 3 years? It is suspected that these 3 years are related to the Gui Yuan sect? Ting Qingshan pondered. Yes. Let's see what this fellow is like. Actually, Ting Qingshan could have chosen any of the 9 people. However, because of the words suspected to be related to the Gui Yuan sect, Ting Qingshan leaned towards Xue Xian. Roar! The huge body of the 6-legged blade-like Qi was flying in the pitch-black night sky. Ting Qingshan stood on the back of the 6-legged blade-like Qi, facing the wind. The whole Gale Eagle was lazing around on the back of the 6-legged blade-like Qi Wuan County. In the past, I placed little June in Wuan County. I didn't expect that she would come to Wuan County again. A smile appeared on Ting Qingshan's face as he thought to himself, if this fellow named Xue Xian is really a promising talent, I will take him as my disciple. I will stand up for him and take revenge for him. Ting Qingshan's purpose was to fight against Qinghu Island. To stand up for his disciple was a very righteous reason. No one would have thought that someone would intentionally provoke Qinghu Island. Phew, the 6-legged blade-like Qi soared through the wind. It took them less than an hour to travel from Nanxing County to Wuan County. In a restaurant opposite the Chongqing Escort Agency in Wuhan County City. Brother Wu Yi, it's all thanks to you this time. If not for you, I wouldn't have been able to keep my life. At the very least, one of my legs would have been crippled. I won't say any more words of gratitude. Let me toast you. On the second floor of the restaurant, 3 warriors were drinking wine together. Our lives are always on the line when we escort missions. I helped you this time, and you will help me next time. These are all things that we should do. There is no need to thank me. A young man with a scar on his face raised his wine cup and said. The 3 warriors were eating and drinking. It was obvious that they had returned from an escort mission and were very happy. In a corner of the restaurant, a white-cloaked man with a long sword on his back was drinking wine leisurely. This Xuexian. Ting Qingshan glanced at the escort named Wu Yi and thought to himself, no wonder the prefectural governor of Wuhan County didn't recognize Xuexian. How is this the weak youth who only knows how to study? If it wasn't for the information, I wouldn't have believed that he was just a weak youth 3 years ago. The escort Wu Yi was Xuexian. At this moment, he was 7 chi and 3 cun tall. His arms were thick and strong, and he had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. There was a hideous scar on his face that went past his nose and covered half of his face. When he opened and closed his eyes, his gaze was as sharp as a knife. 3 years. In just 3 years, he turned from a weak scholar into an expert warrior. Ting Qingshan observed Xuexian's speech and gaze and nodded to himself. Ting Qingshan observed Xuexian for 3 days. During these 3 days, the thing that made Ting Qingshan decide to accept Xuexian as his disciple was that Xuexian went to a poor beggar's den one night and gave some silver to the children of the beggars who were shivering in the cold winter. Xuexian was wanted by Qinghu Island when he was 16 years old. He fled all over the world. I think he was once a beggar. This is probably the reason why he felt pity for these beggars. Ting Qingshan, who was standing in a dark corner and watching Xuexian, finally decided to accept Xuexian as his disciple because of this scene. After that, Ting Qingshan spent a day in Wuhan County City and spent over 100,000 taels of silver to buy a luxurious mansion. The 6-legged blade-like Qi and the whole Gale Eagle arrived at this luxurious mansion at the speed of lightning. Ting Qingshan named this mansion Jing Mansion. Xingyi Fist. Xingyi. If I fight against Qinghu Island, I will use the fake name Jingyi. After Ting Qingshan bought the mansion and settled the 6-legged blade-like Qi and the whole Gale Eagle, he went to the Chongqing Escort Agency that night. In the Chongqing Escort Agency, with the sensing ability of an emptiness realm expert, Ting Qingshan easily found Xuexian. No wonder he became a reputable escort in just 3 years. Ting Qingshan stood on the roof of a building. His entire body seemed to be hidden in the darkness as he looked down at the young man who was practicing his saber in the courtyard below. Xuexian. Pooh. Xuexian's upper body was naked. He held a horse-slaying saber in his hand as he walked in the courtyard at lightning speed. The horse-slaying saber in his hand slashed, and blocked. Every strike of the saber seemed to be directed at an enemy. The sound of air exploding could be heard with every strike of the saber. Xuexian's eyes were as sharp as a saber as he practiced continuously. This fellow isn't using inner strength? Ting Qingshan was slightly surprised. Ting Qingshan could clearly sense the power of the heavens and the earth. This caused a smile to appear on Ting Qingshan's face as he thought to himself, this fellow is actually using his physical strength. Xuexian's saber was extremely fast. Extremely ruthless. That's right. 3 years ago, he didn't know martial arts at all. At that time, he was already 16 years old. He had never cultivated inner strength at the age of 16. Even if there were secret manuals for him to cultivate inner strength, he probably wouldn't be able to achieve anything. Ting Qingshan knew very well that it was best to cultivate inner strength at a young age. Moreover, no one taught him when he was fleeing. He could only swing his saber with his physical strength. But now, I feel that the power of his saber is at least a few thousand jin, Ting Qingshan thought to himself. But why did the information say that this might be related to the Guiyuan sect? Although Ting Qingshan was puzzled, he didn't think too much about it. He quietly waited for Xue Xian to finish practicing. Phew! Xue Xian sheathed his horse-slaying saber. The upper half of his strong body was drenched in sweat. He panted in a low voice as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Grandmother, father, mother, second uncle, and big sister and second sister, I will definitely kill those 3 bastards and avenge you. I will. Xue Xian didn't dare to relax for even a moment. Unfortunately, the difference between him and his enemies was too great. In the pitch-black night, Xue Xian sheathed his horse-slaying saber and prepared to return to his house. At this moment, swoosh! A figure suddenly appeared in front of Xue Xian, as if it had teleported. The figure strangely solidified. It was Ting Qingshan, who was dressed in a white cloak and carried a sharp sword on his back. Xue Xian was shocked and hastily took a step back. Who are you? Xue Xian calmed down. Little fellow, Ting Qingshan looked at Xue Xian with a smile and said, Did you give some silver to those beggars last night? Xue Xian was even more shocked. You used your saber to attack me. Ting Qingshan looked at Xue Xian with a smile and said, Remember, use your most powerful saber art. I might even accept you as my disciple. You want to see my saber art? Xue Xian couldn't help but feel pleasantly surprised. Although he didn't know who this person was, he had never seen or heard of such a terrifying Qing Gong. If he could become the disciple of this person, he might have a chance to avenge himself. Don't worry. I won't draw my sword. Ting Qingshan looked at Xue Xian with a smile. You won't draw your sword? What if I injure you? Xue Xian was slightly worried. Ting Qingshan laughed involuntarily and said, Injure me? If you can injure me, I will help you reach the innate realm within a year. Chapter 454. Help me reach the innate realm within a year? Xue Xian stared at the mysterious white-cloaked man before him in shock. Innate experts are very rare. Even the number 2 sect in Yangzhou, the Guiyuan sect, is rumored to have only 3 or 4 innate experts. Less than 1 in 10,000 warriors can reach the innate realm. This person said that he can help me reach the innate realm within a year? Xue Xian gulped and stared at the person before him. In his opinion, the white-cloaked man before him was very powerful. Stop dreaming. You want me to help you reach the emptiness realm by taking a shortcut? The premise is that you can injure me. Ting Qingshan smiled faintly and said, I will stand within 3 qi of you. With this, Ting Qingshan's right foot emitted a golden flame. Ting Qingshan then drew a circle with his foot. Innate true origin? Xue Xian's heart thumped. Do whatever you want. If you force me out of this circle, it will be my loss. Ting Qingshan looked at Xue Xian with a smile. Senior, you are an innate expert. With the protection of the innate true origin, it is impossible for me to injure you, Xue Xian said. I don't need the protection of the innate true origin. Ting Qingshan calmed down and said, Make your move. Hearing this, Xue Xian couldn't help but feel indignant. You don't need the protection of the innate true origin? Why don't you walk out of the circle? There is no way to dodge in the circle. If I can't even injure him with my saber, my 3 years of saber art training have gone to waste. Xue Xian immediately said respectfully, Senior, please be careful. With this, Xue Xian stared at Ting Qingshan calmly with the saber in his hand. For a moment, it was as if he and his opponent, Ting Qingshan, were the only ones in the world. Interesting. Ting Qingshan observed Xue Xian carefully. Whoosh! The saber instantly transformed into a beam of cold light and struck Ting Qingshan's body like splashed water. However, strangely, Ting Qingshan's figure became blurry and dissipated. 4 or 5 blurry figures of Ting Qingshan suddenly appeared in a circle with a radius of 3 qi, and then, the figures condensed and merged into Ting Qingshan. This. Xuexian blinked. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Use your ultimate move. Ting Qingshan smiled faintly. Senior, this is the Gale Blade that I created myself. Xuexian took a deep breath and suddenly dashed forward. When he was 10 feet away from Ting Qingshan, Xuexian's entire body suddenly transformed into an arc-shaped phantom. His entire body started to spin. At the same time, the horse-slaying saber on his waist also transformed into an arc-shaped bright light. Hoo! 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 A total of 18 swift and fierce blades circled around Ting Qingshan's circle and slashed crazily. Breathe! Hoo! Xuexian, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but gasp for breath. Beads of perspiration covered his forehead. Not bad. Ting Qingshan was still standing in the circle. However, his white robe was still very clean. There was not a single scar on it. How can this be? Xuexian lowered his head and stared at the horse-slaying saber in his hand. Over the past 3 years, he had relied on this horse-slaying saber to escape many disasters and kill many enemies. He trusted this horse-slaying saber the most. In Xuexian's opinion, his 18 blades would definitely injure Ting Qingshan if they cut the circle around him. However, when he performed the blade art, he felt that his blades missed. He didn't hit anything. Senior. Xuexian cupped his hands respectfully and said, I was too arrogant. Senior was just within this 3-foot circle, but I couldn't even hit Senior. I hope Senior can forgive me for what I said just now. Ting Qingshan smiled. An emptiness realm expert was testing a post-liminary realm expert. If this scene was seen by other emptiness realm experts, such as the sovereign of the sword sect, they would probably laugh at Ting Qingshan for being a bully. In the eyes of an emptiness realm expert, the blade art of a post-liminary realm expert was too slow. When a post-liminary realm expert slashed with his blade, the emptiness realm expert could run several zhang away and kill one person. Then, he could return to his original position and block the blade. From this, one could see the difference in speed between a post-liminary realm expert and an emptiness realm expert. It couldn't be helped. An emptiness realm expert could travel 1 to 2 li in a flash. Your blade art is not bad. Ting Qingshan smiled and said. Xuexian's heart trembled. Would this mysterious expert accept him as his disciple? Xuexian had suffered too much over the past 3 years. He really wanted a powerful teacher to teach him. Tell me, how did you train your strength? Ting Qingshan asked with interest. According to my observation, you don't have any inner strength. You only use your physical strength. As the most powerful expert of the branch of internal martial arts, Ting Qingshan liked warriors who used their physical strength very much. Senior. Xuexian smiled and said, I don't have a teacher. When I was wandering outside, I trained hard. How did you train? Ting Qingshan asked curiously. It wasn't easy to train a strength of several thousand jin. There were so many warriors in Tingjia village. It was almost impossible for them to train to a strength of several thousand jin by themselves. At first, I trained randomly. However, it wasn't very useful. I even injured my body. Xuexian shook his head and said helplessly, Later, I began to use my brain. I was thinking, I should use weapons, and my arms must be strong. How can I use arms to be strong? I have seen horses, wild wolves, and other wild beasts. I realized that the front legs of these 4-legged beasts are even stronger. A hint of joy appeared in Ting Qingshan's eyes. I was thinking, if humans crawl on the ground with their hands and feet, would the strength of their arms increase? Xuexian said in surprise. I didn't expect it to be so effective. Every day, I crawled on the ground for at least 14 to 16 hours. The strength of my arms kept increasing. I was in a mountain range, eating wild fruits and animals. I crawled every day. One day, I ate a green fruit and had a stomachache. However, after the pain subsided, I realized that my strength increased tremendously. Shui Xian stared at Ting Qingshan. When Ting Qingshan heard this, a smile appeared on his face. Crawling on the ground was indeed a very simple and effective method. If humans crawled on the ground like animals from the moment they were born, then, after 10 to 20 years, the strength of their arms would be similar to that of their leg. However, this training method couldn't increase the strength of their arms by several thousand gene. This Shui Xian indeed had a fortuitous encounter. I will practice a fist art. Watch carefully, Ting Qingshan said solemnly. Yes. Shui Xian immediately widened his eyes, fearing that he would miss any of Ting Qingshan's moves. Ting Qingshan's hands suddenly formed the tiger claw stance. His eyes widened like the eyes of a tiger. Ting Qingshan fully displayed the tiger form fist of the 12 forms of Xing Yi. At Ting Qingshan's realm, every punch seemed to contain a real tiger. Even a single look from Ting Qingshan could frighten others. Bang! Ting Qingshan pushed his hands and feet against the ground, and he moved over Tenzhong. His movements were as swift as thunder. Fierce tiger descends the mountain. Chi, the sharp claws tore through the air, causing the surrounding air to vibrate. Roar, a faint roar of a tiger could be heard. With a swing of the tiger's tail, the air was sliced into two like tofu. Shui Xian, who was watching from the side, didn't even dare to blink. Did you see it clearly? Ting Qingshan stopped. Yes, yes. Shui Xian nodded. Show me what you saw. Ting Qingshan watched calmly. Shui Xian loved poetry since he was young, so he was very smart. The tiger form fist art wasn't complicated, so Shui Xian could easily memorize it. However, memorizing it was useless. The internal martial art wasn't as simple as Shui Xian thought. On the empty ground, Shui Xian began to practice the tiger form fist art. Halfway through his practice, Shui Xian stopped and pondered. Then, he started practicing again, continuously correcting his move. As he corrected his moves, Shui Xian's tiger form fist art gradually gained some flavor. In less than an hour, Shui Xian was able to display the flavor of the tiger form fist art just by watching it once. Ting Qingshan's eyes brightened. I didn't expect my luck to be so good. Haha. This is a pleasant surprise. A pleasant surprise. Originally, he had chosen a random person to deal with Qin Hu Island. He didn't expect to find a genius of the internal martial art. Actually, this wasn't strange. Shui Xian had once climbed in the mountains and learned how to pounce on wild beasts. He already had some understanding of the meaning of Xing Yi. Naturally, learning the tiger form fist art would yield twice the result with half the effort. Senior. Shui Xian cupped his hands in shame and said, I can only practice this fist art to such an extent. Compared to the fist art that Senior displayed just now, I'm still far from it. Ting Qingshan laughed. Far inferior? Ting Qingshan was an emptiness realm expert who had entered the Tao. He was much stronger than the Grandmaster of the internal martial art. If Shui Xian's fist art could reach 1/10 of Ting Qingshan's, he would be comparable to Ting Shou, who was an innate expert. You are very good. Ting Qingshan looked at Shui Xian with a smile and said, Wu Yi, from today onwards, you will be my third disciple. What do you think? Shui Xian was overjoyed. He knelt down and was about to kowtow. Suddenly, he froze. Shui Xian had a complicated expression on his face. In the land of the 9 prefectures, the status of a master was equivalent to that of a father. A master for a day is a father for a lifetime. This wasn't a lie. After all, one had to rely on strength to travel in the world, and a master was the person who imparted skills to one. Senior. Xue Xian struggled in his heart for a long time. He stared at Ting Qingshan, gritted his teeth and said, "My real name isn't Wu Yi. It's Xue Xian." Xue Xian? Ting Qingshan pretended to be surprised and said, "The Xue Xian wanted by Qing Hu Island." Xue Xian was wanted by the entire Qing Hu Island. This was a major event that happened after Ting Qingshan left the land of the 9 prefectures. Everyone who was well informed knew about this. Yes. Xue Xian lowered his head and sighed. Maybe he had missed the chance to become Ting Qingshan's disciple. However, he didn't regret it. After all, if he harmed his master in the future, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. His family members had all died. He didn't want another person who had treated him well to die. Ha! Ting Qingshan laughed as he looked at Xue Xian. He had completely accepted Xue Xian. If he had wanted to use Xue Xian in the beginning, he now truly regarded Xue Xian as a disciple who had the same status as Ting Shou and Yang Dong. "Xue Xian, from today onwards you are my disciple," Ting Qingshan said with a faint smile. Xue Xian widened his eyes in disbelief. This. Senior, I have offended Qing Hu Island. Xue Xian hastily said. Qing Hu Island was one of the 8 supreme sects. In Xue Xian's opinion, even the most powerful innate experts wouldn't dare to offend the colossal Qing Hu Island. Qing Hu Island? A cold glint flashed in Ting Qingshan's eyes as he said, "Even if the island lord of Qing Hu Island came personally, I would still kill him with one strike of my sword." Xue Xian froze and his body trembled slightly. He knew that he had met an incredible master. "Aren't you going to acknowledge me as your master?" Ting Qingshan smiled as he looked at his disciple. Xue Xian, who was kneeling on the ground, woke up with a start. He revealed an expression of joy and hastily kowtowed. Bang! 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 After 3 consecutive kowtows, Xue Xian raised his head. His eyes were filled with uncontrollable excitement as he said, "Disciple Xue Xian greets master. P.S. Here's the first chapter. Tomato actually, crawling on the ground is a very good way to keep fit." Chapter 455. Now that Xue Xian had become the disciple of Ting Qingshan, he naturally didn't need to be an escort anymore. After leaving a letter, Xue Xian and Ting Qingshan left the Chongqing escort agency quietly. In the Jing residence, a luxurious residence that Ting Qingshan had just bought in Wuan County City. In the study room of the inner court, "From today onwards you will live with me." Ting Qingshan lit a candle and turned to sit down. He smiled at Xue Xian, who was carrying a bundle on his back, and said, "Xue Xian, sit down first. Tell me about the enmity between you and Qing Hu Island." "Yes, teacher." After Xue Xian sat down, he began to narrate in detail. He told Xue Xian about the deep affection between him, his parents, his sister, and the others. He also told Ting Qingshan about the disaster. He even told Ting Qingshan about how he poisoned his enemies. "A scholar is useless." Xue Xian shook his head and laughed out loud. However, his eyes were filled with tears. "What's the use of studying? If I had learned martial arts since I was young, even if I couldn't compare to the genius Ting Qingshan of the Guiyuan sect who reached the true Dan innate realm at the age of 17, I wouldn't have been unable to kill any of those 3 bastards." The biggest blow in his life made Xue Xian think that studying was useless. Since then, he had devoted himself to learning martial arts. "Xue Xian, do you have any connection with the Guiyuan sect?" Ting Qingshan asked. Xue Xian stared at Ting Qingshan in surprise. He nodded and said, "Teacher, how did you know?" Ting Qingshan couldn't help but feel shocked. Xue Xian continued, "Back then, I trained hard in the mountains. After eating the green fruit, I achieved some success. Then, I started to wander outside. Coincidentally, I became friends with some members of the Guiyuan sect's Black Armored Corps. Ting Qingshan nodded. This Xue Xian has always wanted to take revenge, but he doesn't have the ability to. Ting Qingshan sighed. Xue Xian, do you want to take revenge? Ting Qingshan asked. Of course I do. Xue Xian's eyes lit up. Then, he shook his head and said, however, I'm too weak. I can't even deal with that Zhao Shi, let alone the county chief of Wuan County City, Zhao Guangzhou. Xue Xian had 3 enemies. The first was Zhao Fu, who had forcefully demanded the Flowing Cloud invitation. He framed and killed the Xue clan's county governor, Zhao Guangzhou, and Zhao Shi, who had been playing the role of a useless advisor throughout the entire process. If you don't have the ability, I'll give you the ability to take revenge. Ting Qingshan stood up. Stay here for a while. Yes, teacher. Xue Xian felt somewhat apprehensive as he watched Ting Qingshan leave. Xue Xian was the only one left in the empty study room. Staring at the flickering candle flame, Xue Xian gritted his teeth and said, I, Xue Xian, have finally become the disciple of a great teacher. The heavens have been kind to me. I must cultivate diligently and work 10 times, 100 times harder. Father, mother, grandmother, second uncle, big sister. I will definitely hack these 3 bastards into 1,000 pieces and take revenge for you. After a while, clack, 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 the sound of Ting Qingshan's footsteps could be heard. Xue Xian immediately calmed himself down and turned to look. He saw Ting Qingshan walking in with a jade box in his hand. Xue Xian. Ting Qingshan opened the jade box. Xue Xian immediately examined the box carefully. Inside the jade box was a grass with only 2 leaves. Although the grass had been plucked long ago, one could still feel its vigorous vitality. There seemed to be dewdrops on the leaves of the grass. Ting Qingshan smiled faintly and said, This spiritual herb is called the morning dew grass. It has a miraculous effect. Once consumed, it can open up all the meridians in the body. Eat it first, Ting Qingshan said. Open up all the meridians in the body? This. Xue Xian stood up with a whoosh. He gulped and looked at Ting Qingshan anxiously. Teacher, this is too precious. Don't be wishy-washy. Eat it, Ting Qingshan shouted coldly. Spiritual herbs that could open up all the meridians in the body could be found in the land of the 9 prefectures. They were considered high-grade spiritual herbs and spiritual fruit. However, Ting Qingshan had obtained the morning dew grass by chance when he was searching for the dreamy cloud white fruit in Duanmu continent. Actually, Ting Qingshan had many spiritual fruits and spiritual herbs. Firstly, he could search for some himself. Secondly, he had the most spiritual herbs, spiritual fruits, and secret manuals. When Ting Qingshan plundered the treasures of the number 1 clan in Duanmu continent, the Tianfeng clan, he took all kinds of spiritual herbs, spiritual fruits, and secret manuals. How many 1,000-year-old spiritual treasures did the Tianfeng clan have? Therefore, this morning dew grass was really nothing much. Gurgle, Xue Xian felt grateful to his teacher. Simultaneously, he swallowed the morning dew grass. Strangely, the morning dew grass turned into juice in Xue Xian's mouth. He gulped it down as if he was drinking water. My whole body feels numb. Xue Xian had a strange expression on his face. He couldn't help but twist his body. It's so hot. Gray and black impurities continuously seeped out of Xue Xian's pores. Xue Xian was immersed in the transformation of his body by the morning dew grass and didn't notice the passage of time. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Xue Xian let out a long breath. A hint of happiness appeared on his dirty face. Thank you, teacher. Xue Xian knelt down with a thud. Open your mouth, Ting Qingshan instructed. Xue Xian froze and opened his mouth. A drop of water flew out from the jade bottle in Ting Qingshan's hand and floated into Xue Xian's mouth. Shui Xian widened his eyes in surprise. However, a moment later, a joyous expression appeared on his face. This drop of water was the precious elixir of the North Sea. A single drop could create an expert at the peak of the post-liminary realm. Moreover, it could transform the meridians. Now that the meridians are completely unobstructed, it will only be beneficial to Shui Xian's cultivation of the internal martial art. Ting Qingshan nodded his head in satisfaction. His body is filled with inner strength. This will allow him to have sufficient energy to strengthen his body during the cultivation process. After a moment, Teacher, Shui Xian could feel the shocking changes in his body. He couldn't help but feel grateful toward Ting Qingshan. Ever since his family was ruined, Ting Qingshan could be said to be the person who treated him the best. Although he had made other friends, it was obvious that the teacher before him treated him the best. Having experienced the fickleness of human nature, he would remember the kindness that others had shown him even more. Don't just stand here like a fool, Ting Qingshan instructed. When I came just now, I had already ordered the servants to boil some hot water. Go and take a bath quickly. Remember, servants are forbidden from entering the inner court. You will have to carry the hot water into the room yourself. Okay. Shui Xian looked at himself. He was dirty and couldn't help but chuckle. In Wuan County City, the Warm Breeze House was the best brothel. Even the most ordinary brothel would cost dozens of silver taels, which was equivalent to the annual income of an ordinary villager. On the third floor of the Warm Breeze House, poems and paintings of famous people were hung on the wall. Below the viewing platform, over 10 exquisitely carved tables were placed. On each table was a cup of top-notch tea. It was obvious that the business here was very good. The viewing platform was filled with people. Everyone was whispering to each other and listening to the zither and flute music. Although it was winter, the third floor was filled with hot air. It wasn't cold at all. Instead, it was as warm as spring. On the viewing platform, 2 young ladies with enchanting figures and beautiful appearances were wearing only a thin layer of muslin. One of them was playing the flute while the other was playing the zither. As the zither and flute played together, the music reverberated in the third floor. Below the viewing platform, in the left corner, sat the pair of teacher and disciple, Ting Qingshan and Shui Xian. Teacher, the person sitting over there is Zhao Shi. Shui Xian gestured with his eyes and said, "He's the skinny young man at the front." Ting Qingshan glanced at him. There were 3 people sitting at the front table, which was the best table on the third floor. They were a handsome young man and a pair of beautiful twin girls. The twin girls were peeling grapes and putting them into the mouth of the handsome young man. The handsome young man seemed very relaxed. Behind the handsome young man stood 2 valiant guards. This Zhao Shi was bought by the Zhao clan when he was young. He was originally a servant of the Zhao clan and accompanied Zhao Fu, a direct descendant of the Zhao clan, to practice martial arts and study. Shui Xian said in a low voice. However, this Zhao Shi is very scheming. Not only did he coax Zhao Fu well, but he is also quite powerful. He has connections with all sorts of people in Wuan County City. He is the sworn brother of General Li, the commander of Wuan County City's army. He is also secretly doing some big business. Even the Zhao clan's patriarch has adopted Zhao Shi. Now, this Zhao Shi can drink and chat merrily with General Li and the county chief in Wuan County City. He is definitely an extraordinary person. Shui Xian said in a deep voice, "I have to admit that this Zhao Shi is a very powerful person. In my opinion, he is even more powerful than Zhao Fu, the young master of the Zhao clan." Ting Qingshan nodded slightly. For a servant to develop to this stage, one could imagine how scheming this person was. When Zhao Shi follows Zhao Fu, Zhao Shi will be able to obtain anything that Zhao Fu wants, and he will be able to resolve everything perfectly. Back then, Zhao Shi was the one who told Zhao Fu about the flowing cloud invitation. Moreover, he was the one who arranged the framing and confiscation of the clan. Xuexian's gaze turned cold. I must kill this Zhao Shi as soon as possible. Although Xuexian's conversation was blocked by Ting Qingshan, the outside world could not hear it. However, in the distance, Zhao Shi, who was being served by a pair of twin sisters, seemed to sense Xuexian's murderous gaze. He suddenly turned his head and glanced at Xuexian. However, Xuexian instantly regained his composure. Ah Bao! Zhao Shi suddenly stood up and gestured to the two beauties beside him with his eyes. Brother Shi. The pair of sisters stood up, puzzled. Let's go. Zhao Shi held one of the ladies' hands and placed his other hand on his waist. Then, he immediately led the two beauties and the two guards outside. Great young Master Zhao. The brothel keeper, a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 30s, greeted them with a smile. You're leaving so early? Yes, I have something to do today. Zhao Shi smiled and stuffed a banknote into the brothel keeper's arms. Then, he touched her chest. However, at this moment, Zhao Shi's expression changed slightly. This was because Ting Qingshan and Xuexian walked toward the staircase. Zhao Shi calmly took a step back and retreated behind the brothel keeper and the guards. Thud, thud, thud. Xuexian had already reached the side of the guards. He brushed past them and was about to walk toward the staircase. Zhao Shi. Xuexian suddenly turned his head and stared at Zhao Shi. Oh, you are? Zhao Shi smiled as he looked at Xuexian. Simultaneously, he held a beauty in front of him and said, Forgive my bad memory. Brother, you are? I'm the one who will take your life. Xuexian shouted fiercely. Swish! A saber light flashed like a waterfall. Immediately, the guards, beauties, and the brothel keepers behind the brothel keeper screamed. Clang! The saber light chopped off the arm of the beauty in Zhao Shi's arms. Then, a metallic sound rang out and blood splattered. Zhao Shi crashed into the wall at the side. With a rumbling sound, a big hole appeared in the wall. Then, Zhao Shi leaped out of the wall. Boom! Like a ferocious tiger, Xuexian, whose eyes were bloodshot, leaped out of the hole. He held the horse-slaying saber that was dripping with blood. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.